What's up, everybody? I'm here with my old friend Tim Pierce from Tim and Pete's Guitar Show fame, and recorded on a gajillion albums, and he's a legend. I miss you, man. I miss working with you.
I miss you too. Someday I'll get to drive over to your place again and be with you, but not yet.
Yeah. It's been a minute since we did Tim and Pete show. It was like, I don't know, a long time since we've done it. But anyways, great to see you.
You too.
Yeah. So we got all the good folks here in the chat. Ben Coons is here, my faithful moderator. He's always so wonderful about being here. And happy Mother's Day, everybody. Yeah.
Hey, Pete, do I get to see the comments too?
Oh, yeah. You should see them.
Oh, there they are. Okay. I got it.
Yeah. And
I'm there. Great. Hi, everybody.
So you guys, of course, you know Tim's history and how knowledgeable he is and stuff. So ask away. Ben Coombs says that he got to talk to you for a few minutes at an event, and you're so humble, and I would agree with that. You're a shining light and always so positive and knowledgeable. And I don't know.
Well, I've tried it the other way. I've tried to be negative. Doesn't work.
It didn't work. It's a bummer, right?
Yeah,
it's a bummer.
It doesn't work.
Ultimately, you just want to have fun, right? You just want to
have fun. Being
negative doesn't get you there. So, okay. Somebody says they're asking about a Marshall that you used during your Rick Springfield tenure, Armando. Any information on that amp?
This is great. This is so great to talk about, because during the 80s, I used to order JCM 800s out of the box brand new. And before they did their cost cutting, where they actually kind of destroyed the sound of the amp, in the early 80s, they were great. And then there was a point, maybe 1983, you'll have to research it, where they changed it from vertical to, I have a good one right here in front of me somewhere. They changed the inputs from horizontal to vertical, or vice versa. Anyway, for about 4 years, they actually did cost cutting, and they took one tube out and made the amp sound really bad. And then they actually recreated the old one. The special amps were they were plain JCM 800s, but they were based on Neil Giraldo's rig. And Neil Giraldo had combos, 212 combos with a JCM 800 in each one. I think they were probably custom made. But then he put EVM 12L speakers in them. And for the life of me, I don't know how we got good sounds out of those speakers, because they're so efficient. But we did. We got great sounds out of a JCM 800 and 212s.
Yeah.
In a cabinet from EVM 12L speakers.
Open back.
However,
cabinet.
Yeah.
So it was the JCM 800 combo.
That's right.
With the 212s. I always thought those amps looked really cool. I've maybe played through one once or twice, and I can't even tell you what they sound like, but I always thought they looked like so simple, just like really cool. I don't know, those combos. So my God, they must have been heavy though with those speakers, right?
Oh yeah.
Whoa. That was a heavy speaker in that combo.
That's when I was touring with Rick Springfield, so they were in road cases all the time. And
yeah.
I think I did have cartridge at a certain point. Yeah, so I didn't really lift them, but it was so great. We thought Neil Giraldo was the best. He sounded the best. So we just copied him.
He's still so great. I saw him play with, I think that, oh God, it's probably 5-6 years ago now, but I saw Pat Benatar opening for Journey, and Neil was killer. I mean, and he looked great. He was playing like semi-hollow guitars a lot of the night, and he had on I remember like a real sharp looking suit and a tie and stuff, and it was all, it was like, wow, that guy's, he's a classy dude.
Yeah, he's very strong hands. I mean, he really, really, really good hands.
That's cool. Somebody else is on this sort of same note here. Ariel is asking about your favorite speaker. So if not a 12L, what speaker do you?
These days, I would say I've just gotten so used to a standard vintage 30, Celestion vintage 30, but I did discover a new one.
Oh, yeah?
Which you'll have to remind me what it's called. It was made from about 1978 to 1982, and it's their 60-watt speaker. And I actually got a 412 loaded with them. I've never done this in my life. I actually shipped a used 412 from Virginia.
Oh. Really?
And got it here with these speakers. They're the 60-watt Celestians that were made. They reissued it now, but they were made for like 2 years.
Do they have the big dust caps?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they're 65, G12M 65.
Yeah.
I think they're called.
I got advice from Dave Phillips, from a lot of people, and Rick Beato too, who said they were the best Celestion ever made. And they're great. They're different. They're a little, as you might imagine, they're a little more hi-fi, a little more definition. Maybe not quite as warm and mushy, but so for a different application where you want more, more fidelity.
Yeah,
they work great. And the thing is, when it comes to gear, I don't know if you know this about me, Pete. Hopefully I hid it from you. I can never remember what things are.
That's okay.
It's like if I buy something and it's the S500 thingamajig, I can't. 3 days later, it was the S something.
That's because you remember the notes and how to play. I can remember the gear, but I can't remember how the song goes. So
no, I can't remember that well either. But it's just we all have different gifts, and I love the guys who have photographic memories. I know a lot of them. I think you're pretty close to that. But I was never one of those guys.
Well, that's interesting. So down in Tim has a in his garage a thing for cabinets built, like an ISO thing. So in your ISO closet, do you have a cab with the 65s and then a V30 loaded cab as well now? And they're all mic'd and everything?
Yes.
So they're all mic'd in both setups. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
You can walk into it, and then all I have to do is switch over. Let's see if this doesn't all fall apart. Switch on my I can switch cabs right there with those switches, those white switches.
Yeah.
And all I do is switch to the other cabinet, activate the other mics, turn the existing mics off. There's a couple of steps to this. Yeah. And I'm in the new cabinet, and it's nice. It's rare when you actually find new things that are useful, kind of game changers.
Yeah.
And that is one. It's a nice shift.
Well, that's cool. We got a few folks up here in the super chat, so I'll say hi to them. We've got Jay Frock on, and he says, "Hey, Pete and Tim, was just watching a Tim video and wondered if you guys would ever do this." I guess he's just not asking a question. He's just saying, wondering if we would ever get together and do this. So rock on. He says, "Thanks, man. Thanks for being a part of our show here." Simon, he's up there in the super chat, and he says, "Boring question time. No questions are boring here, Simon. They're all valid. Recently took a week guitar break due to tendonitis. Oh, sorry to hear that. What steps do you take to avoid playing injury?
This is a good subject for me right now, if you don't mind, Pete.
Me too. I got a little
Okay. Yeah, I have a little something going too.
Yeah. What's happening?
So here's the deal. I have spent my whole life leaning slightly forward with my head slightly forward because I have Pro Tools in front of me and I work alone a lot in front of my system, right? So play guitar, run Pro Tools, maybe the artist is sitting across from me. You've seen my setup. Yep. So I spent a lot of time leaning forward with my head forward. Now, when we hit the pandemic, I started spending all my time looking at screens, looking at my iPhone, looking at my laptop, looking at this rig in front of me now with my back a little forward and my head even more forward. And it's really, really created a problem. I actually have a feeling a little bit of numbness right here. So I actually went to the doctor and I'm going to figure out how to mitigate it. But the thing is, if you look at this chair, I've got this thing right behind me. That's Patty got it for me. My wife is a retired yoga teacher. So this thing is like a soft post. And it's really helping because my back sits into it and it actually forces me to not have that bad habit that I've had for a long time.
Well, that's great.
So there's all kinds of things that can crop up. And so now I'm working really hard on ergonomics. But I would say if you have tendonitis, you might be gripping too hard. The other thing I would suggest is make sure you have a really one of these Ferrari style boutique guitars like yours or a PRS or
lighter
a Tom
strings,
Henderson.
low action.
Yeah, don't be afraid to give up the whatever cool vintage guitar you have while you get this worked out, because I have found if I do 9 through 42 on one of my boutique guitars that kind of play themselves, then I start to I don't have to press as hard, so I can get rid of those bad habits in here. In other
Mhm.
words, I would do everything you can possibly think of to lighten up, play light as a feather, light strings, easy to play guitar. I would even give up playing acoustic for the time being, because acoustic, you really do have to muscle it. You really have to press down hard.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's for sure. And I think that that you make great points. I mean, number one, the fact that your posture is affecting possibly something in your hand is an interesting, because I've found the same thing. I mean, it can be, I think I have issues in my elbow that it goes down into my hand and and so something in your neck can be triggered all the way down into your, so it's good to take all that into account, but lightening up the touch, that's a really good, important. I've been doing that too, like warming up slowly. And because over the last year or two, I've had some issues where, I hit this like popping nerve sensation in my hand if I don't warm up, and certain chord shapes and things will bring it on. And I just have to be really careful. Like now I find with my,
Yeah, you do, and so do I. We all have to be really careful in this era where we're constantly looking at our iPhones with our heads bent forward. I mean,
right. Put
in
all this
my
weight,
case,
right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then for us, the ergonomic thing of the guitar is you're always like this a little bit, so you have to work against that. So any exercise, yoga would really help. I've been doing some yoga moves that are really helping me right now. The thing is, I would attack it from every angle, every single angle you possibly can.
Yeah, that's great. I think the like you say, the posture too, like sitting like I found sometimes like sitting in more of a classical guitar posture with your back up and the guitar on the other knee could alleviate a lot of, because the lift in your hand is right here and it's not down here with your wrist bent. And so try all those different things if you're having issues, and just a lighter touch and maybe lighter strings. I definitely find a good setup helps. But that's
find a guitar that basically plays itself and start there so that you don't
Yeah.
have to press down hard. And anytime you run into a problem, forgive yourself and stop and start again. The other thing I've been doing lately is, and it's okay for videos, I've been wearing my guitar really high. So it's not like you would have to do that forever, but you need to do stuff that will send you back in the right direction.
Yeah.
So if you can heal and take all these geeky steps to, I mean, I wasn't planning on showing anybody that today, but it's this soft post that makes my back go like this. You can do all these geeky steps to actually get back on the road to recovery.
Yeah.
And then who knows, in a couple of years, you might be able to just slam it down on your knees again. And,
I kind of want to go to relax the back and find a good, once stores are open again, find a good chair, because this chair sucks. The one I've got right now, and I find myself as I age, but the more that I like, spending some money on a chair would be a good investment.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. I recommend it.
Rory is up there in the super chat, and he's in, I guess, Europe somewhere, and he didn't have a question. He's just being a nice guy. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And Christopher as well. You guys are all too kind. Thank you very much. Bent Tom is up there as well, and he says, Tim, can you give us specifics, aka overall size, thickness of walls for your cabinet cave? Somebody's thinking about building something like that. Did you do a double wall kind of construction for single wall?
No, when I moved into this house, I was kind of freaked out about the whole thing, and so I underbuilt my cave down there.
Mm-hmm.
It's sound resistant. It's not totally soundproof. So it was built pretty massively. It has a great door. It has double doors. But it's actually just one layer. So it's not, you still hear the sound in the driveway. You hear the bottom end leaking out. But my neighbors are situated to where they're not bothered by it. So I recommend.
You've got a kind of a room in a room because it's in your garage. So it's like you've got a garage door. So it's not perfect, but yeah.
And the garage door is surprisingly good at stopping the sound. Anyway, so there's an enormous amount of bottom end. An electric guitar has as much bottom end as a bass. I mean, it's just going to leak out like crazy. So do double wall it. Just go on the internet and look at all of the options. I think you don't really have to, as long as you build a room within a room, you don't have to be really, really insane about all of the scientific soundproofing, thing. Because if the room within a room will work, even if you don't do it in a very, like I said, scientific way.
Yeah.
Definitely build a room within a room and make sure there's enough room so where the air can dissipate. I'm
saying make it as big as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, mine is about as big as a big truck. I mean, it takes up one whole bay of my garage.
Right.
And I spent a lot on it, and then I had it remodeled and made it bigger and spent a lot more. And it's not well soundproofed, but it's soundproofed enough to not get me in trouble with my neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, when I did the room I'm in now, I didn't end up doing a double wall, but it's a 2x6 wall that has 3 layers of drywall on one side and 2 layers on the other side with rock wool or whatever in the middle, and it's got green glue between all the drywall. And I know that the biggest thing is the door. Like, so I've got a double door there, and the seals around the door are huge. Like, I mean, a big deal. They're not huge physically, but those seals, if you can see.
Oh yeah,
this stuff I got from a place in Studio City called Stephen Klein's Sound Control Room.
Right.
And it's this neoprene foam stuff that you actually close the door and then you put the foam against it. Like, it's like the guy showed me how to do it, you know. It's like in order to get the seal tight. So I need to physically lean on the door to actually get it to seal. And that is the biggest thing, because you can spend all this money on a double wall and like everything, all these, and then, you know, lighting is the other thing. If you do like pot lights or whatever in your ceiling, and then then it all goes out the window, or all out the ceiling. Yeah. You know, so you gotta, if you're building a studio or an ISO chamber or whatever it is, just think about it. It needs to really be airtight. And I think you're right, as big as possible, so that like you've got the room for the sound to go, and just not get boxy like this and build up, right?
That's true. Yeah. I mean, and I was over at John Shanks the other day, and he did something that I've seen another engineer friend of mine do, which I do. Mm-hmm. And even in my space, which is pretty big, I put packing blankets over the cabinet and over the microphone, so that, because you're dealing with an enormous amount of bottom end that goes out into the room and then comes back. Yeah. And you wouldn't think it would pollute the microphone, but it does. Yeah. So that's another trick. If you take a packing blanket and put it over your 412 and the microphone, it really helps that. And I was at Shanks the other day, and all of his cabinets had the packing blankets over them. We didn't even talk about it. I just said, oh, he discovered that too. So
it's a cheap and easy way to, definitely to, I mean, you know, cut down on some unwanted stuff coming back into the mic. I've got this thing that I got from, what's it called? Clear Sonic. And it's called an amp kit or something. But it's a baffle that goes around the cab. Same people that Joe Bonamassa's baffles, you know, but this has these sorber things that you line the inside of so it's not just the plexiglass that goes around the cab. It's got these sorber baffles, and they're absorbent. Same idea. So the sound goes out, and it, you know, and that works pretty good in my little cab room too. But packing blanket is a great, inexpensive thing if you've already built the room in a room.
Yeah.
You know. Okay. September Fire says, I just loaded my 06 Highway 1 Strat with DiMarzio HS3 and 4s. Any thought on these pickups? You used some DiMarzio pickups like Virtual Vintage sometimes, right?
They've renamed those pickups, because the ones I got were I got them quite a long time ago. So you'd have to check with DiMarzio. It might be called Area 50 or something. I don't know what they're called now. But I'm super impressed with their noise canceling pickups. Another company called Kinman makes great noise canceling pickups. They're Australian. But the DiMarzio Silent Strat pickups are phenomenally good. Recommend them.
Yeah, HS3 is the old Ingve one, which was a stack, so it's a little different. As I understand it, the DiMarzio's like the Virtual Vintage, or now you say Area 51, they're also a stack. But instead, the way that they work is that, like an HS3 is 2 equal coils that's stacked. And a Virtual Vintage, I think what they do is they just the smallest amount of the coil is 1 coil, and then the majority of the lines are on the other coil. And by doing that, that sort of method, I guess you can keep some more of the typical single coil tone.
Yeah, I find that they sound very natural and very. You know, it still sounds like a Strat.
I would like to try a set sometime. I've never tried those. Yeah. William Lang says, and HS3, the other fellow up there, those are really cool. I mean, it's a different sound. It's not an exact, but it's Ingve. You know, I mean, he made his whole career on, and you know, it's a high output kind of cool pickup all in its own right. We don't necessarily have to be completely traditional all the time, do we? It's like, you know.
I'm moving away from that every day.
Whatever works.
Exactly. Whatever you want. Customize yourself, customize your gear.
Yeah.
Make it yours.
I remember hearing about when John Paul Jones was doing them Crooked Vultures with Josh from Queens of the Stone Age, and that whole band, and then they all showed up for like whatever first day of rehearsal or something. They decided to do this band together, and he's got like a modern bass, and he's got SWR amps, and they're I think thinking he's going to show up with the jazz bass and the acoustic like Led Zeppelin, and they're like, I just heard they're like, so are you going to use not going to use any of this? And he's like, that stuff sucked. That's why we only used it because it was what was there. Like there was nothing else available. So they're just like, no. That's the story I heard anyway. But anyway, somebody's saying, it's William up there in the super chat. Just got back from a walk to see my two favorite YouTubers back together again. Thanks, he says. That's awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Good, you're out for a walk today, right? You got to get out and what? Do you used to walking every day? Do you get out in your hood and?
Yeah, because you know where we live. I live sort of up in the mountains in the boonies, which I'm not really in the center of town, and there's lots of good walking out here, lots of wide streets, and it's good for that. So I do it in the evening usually. Yeah.
Simon is saying that he's got a 2020 PRS S94 single cut and he loves it, and he's up there in the super chat. And somebody else was asking about modern PRS guitars way back in the chat. I can't remember who it was, but somebody was saying if you could comment on, because I know you've got
yeah, absolutely. So I met Paul about 10 years ago, and he befriended me, and I'm going to reveal something. He said to me, my guitars suck. And I'm going to try and figure out how to make better sounding guitars. Try these guitars. I think I finally figured out how to make them sound good. Huh. It's funny. And so he's relentlessly trying to improve what he does. So that guitar that he gave me 10 years ago became my favorite guitar. And I play it all the time. Well, he brought me a new one last summer, and it's now my new favorite guitar. And the main reason is they have a new pickup. It's called a TCI. Now, for them, that's just marketing. I wouldn't put too much stock in what TCI means, but he's been chasing a clear bell-like humbucker for a long time. And he finally did it. This guitar, it's very bell-like. And I know that's what your pickups are like too. That's what everybody has been trying to do. And he's got the woods better. He's got the metals better. They're constantly trying to do everything they can to make their guitar sound better. They never, ever stop. So I would say at this point in time, even if you buy one of the guitars that's made in, overseas, it's at a much lower price point, you're going to get the best PRS ever made. They even from 2 years ago, the guitars they're making right now are better. Now, I'll just go a little further. He had to shut down because of the pandemic, but he took out loans, and he is paying every single one of his 350 employees.
Oh, that's great.
And he told me if he doesn't start by May 15th, he's in a whole lot of trouble. So I think they're going to let him start. But his factory is so big and they already all wear masks anyway. I mean, it's so big you wouldn't even want to walk around it. He almost lost his business after the 2008 crash because he had just moved into this giant facility because he was just going gangbusters. And he still has it, and it's amazing and great. And now they're going gangbusters again. I mean, before the pandemic, they were back ordered like 6 months. They can't make enough guitar. Every guitar they make is sold, basically.
That's like the Spur folks, yeah. Like it's a quality problem, but you're behind 6 months or whatever. Yeah. That's
so I don't know if I exactly answered your question, but
I think so.
If you've waited to buy our PRS, you were smart, because now you're going to get an amazing PRS.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about the overseas ones too. I mean, I've played quite a few of the SE models, and I think they're great for the money. I mean, I say great for the money. It's just a good guitar. They feel good. I mean, I think they were the first ones to me to kind of bridge that gap because guitars made in Korea, it was always like, oh, they're not quite, And then whatever was going on with the factory in Korea with PRS, the first ones I picked up, it was like, wait a second, this feels, in 10 seconds, you're just like, oh, That's not what I was expecting. It's like it doesn't have that feel like necessarily like many years ago in Japan they had it figured out and they were making great guitars in Japan and stuff. But guitars that were coming out of Korea still felt like there was just something about them. And then with PRS and the SEs, that was with the guitars that really changed my mind. Where I was like, yeah, they got it. They got it figured out how to make a nice guitar.
Yeah, an SC guitar with a setup, a really great setup. And maybe you might, I don't know what the pickups sound like, but you might do a pickup change, which is always affordable.
Yeah, sure.
You basically would have kind of the same thing in some ways as their top end models.
Yeah. Interesting. Jeff's got a great question here. He says, what's the greatest record you ever played on, or maybe your favorite record you ever played on? And then who are you listening to these days, guitar wise, that you're digging?
Well, I mean, a lot of people like the Toy Matinee record. And even when I was doing it, I was kind of a prog rock band that was really, really fun. And Patrick Leonard hired me to do it. So Toy Matinee, if you listen to that, it's a pretty great musical experience.
Just listen to the intro of Last Playing Out. I mean, the guitars on that, it's like an orchestra. It's amazing.
Yeah. It was really, really fun. And I knew it was one of the best, best things I would ever do, even when I was doing it. And some things I discovered later, like on Iris on the Goo Goo Dolls, every time I heard it on the radio, I didn't know it at the time, but that ended up being, this is one of the best things I've ever done. Just because of the song and the orchestra, David Campbell was a 30-piece orchestra, and I get to play a electric slide and mandolin on that song. So really those are some of the best ones. There was a Phil Collins song called You'll Be in My Heart that was really great. In the early 80s, when I worked with Rick Springfield, the Living in Oz record probably had some of my favorite solos. But it was funny, he moved away from soloing right after that. There was a point in the 80s where it really happened when Nirvana arrived, but soloing stopped being a major part of, song.
Sure. Yep.
And so then it became about rhythm guitar. So I would say Toy Matinee, Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls, Living in Oz by Rick Springfield way, way back. And now it's guys on YouTube and Instagram. I mean, Mark Lettieri, when he plays funk, it's like just sends me into another zone, Isaiah Sharkey, I like. And even like Rick Beato when he does his improvisations.
Yeah.
I don't even understand.
Yeah. What is he doing?
It's kind of like
waking up, had some coffee, improv in D, and it's like, what the hell are you doing?
There was one that I understood.
Amazing.
Because he was like in Dorian, right? And I go, that's that, so so I love all the people who aren't necessarily on the map in a traditional sense.
Yeah.
But I love everybody on YouTube. I just love, and on Instagram. I mean, it's just guitar is going through a very powerful renaissance.
It's funny because it's all just music delivery, right? And if we can get past the idea that the traditional model of like making CDs in studios or albums, recording long playing albums in studios or whatever, that was somehow more valid than seeing somebody do something brilliant on Instagram or YouTube. Yeah. To me, it's all music delivery, and it's all just it's about the person. That, I mean, let's go back to the days before you could record music or there was any TV, or it's only been like 100 years, so it's like, and music existed for thousands of years, and it was like live. That was the only way to, So it's funny that we consider, well, this is the valid way, it's like, no. Like, it's like, if music is music, and it's however it's getting to you. And if you're feeling it, then it's valid. Right. Yeah.
You're right. It was locked in. My film editor, Nigel, Nigel, he's quite a musician himself. And he was talking about how music was locked into these products for a long time. And we benefited from that. Everybody benefited from that. But then it got unlocked. And that's exactly what you're saying. Now it's just out. And so now you have to find different ways to make your living and to get it out in the world.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I can make a piece of music and do a 60-second. It's the same thing you're doing. You can do a piece of music. Your solo record is on YouTube every week.
Well,
it's there.
I always say that I make demo videos for products, but really I've fooled everybody because I'm all I'm doing is trying to come up with a way that I can write little songs.
That's right.
So it's like, okay, I get to write a little song now. Great. All I got to do is use this pedal. That's my only parameter, which is kind of fun because it gives me a little parameter to work within. And then I go to work writing a song and I forget about everything else. And then it's just a matter of, oh yeah, I got to remember to turn the camera on when I'm about to do the take for this part. And then I record that. But I'm just writing a song. That's the fun part for me. So it's music delivery.
Yeah, and it's so much easier now because when I came up earlier than you, when I first came up, you had to have a singer like Lou Gramm in your band. I mean, you had to have David Coverdale in your band, or else you didn't have anything.
Right.
And those guys were really hard to find. And sometimes when you found that guy, they had, quite an ego. And so these days, I don't have to worry about whether what I'm writing is going to be a hit, because that was what happened next. Then if you became a songwriter, it was like, is it a hit?
Yeah. And isn't it great to not have to worry about that and just play the weirdest thing on guitar, cool, and then go, hey, I can put this out. And then it, just goes out in the world.
Now, that's the great thing about the destruction of the old model, because it's all on you to do whatever you want to reach your audience. And you and I don't have to sing. We don't have to have Lou Gramm show up.
I mean, it's cool still if you do, but there's other ways to go now.
Yeah.
That was the only way before. You're right. Otherwise, it was just like you were going to play jazz in a club or something. That was it. Now you've got all these other options. It's pretty cool.
It's great. It's funny. That brings me to I'm sure you have a great singer in your band that you toured with. You're so lucky, your timing. You actually finished your tour before the pandemic, right?
Like 5 days before. it's like I got home and then it was like, I think I went out with a couple times, like went to a couple restaurants, went out to a bar once, and then it was done. It was like lockdown, it was like, oh my God, what just happened? Because California was kind of first and all that, right?
Yeah, I'm so happy for you that you got to finish that and have all that fun and do that, to its completion.
Yeah, I just felt lucky to be able to do it to its completion and not have to go through the chaos of like people getting back from Europe and everybody was panicked and it was like, no, I got it. Everything was cool. It was just like,
I was talking to Phil X the other day, and he was out with the drills, enjoying, doing gigs and seminars, and he said they started canceling gigs a few weeks in advance. Okay. And then they started canceling more. They kept shaving off his schedule until the shave came right to where he was. And it was like, oh, we're going home tomorrow.
Guess we're going home. A lot of people, man. I mean, my buddy John Button, John, he was getting ready to leave the next day to go start a Who tour over in the UK, start their UK run. It was like right the day before. It was like, okay, that's it. Yeah. Couple folks up in the top chat here. My father recorded a cassette tape with that Phil Collins song when the movie came out. I was like 6 or 7 years old. Didn't know Tim played on it. That's so great. The song you brought up.
Before you move on, just hold that thought. Can you imagine what it was like for me to sit in a room and play guitar with Phil Collins playing drums?
That's so cool, dude.
It was just like, yeah. Basically, that's him. Anyway, move on. Move forward.
That's amazing, dude. I love. Yeah, but how many stories do you have like that? Of like,
that was incredible.
I had a room and played with this person. It's like, God, you've got hundreds of those, don't you?
Well, I got to go to Switzerland and work with him for a month on his next solo record because that song did so well for him.
That sounds.
And it was awesome. It was awesome. The irony was he rented this big chateau, right?
Right.
But the actual recording was done in the smallest remote truck I've ever seen, parked on the lawn.
The guy in there, like,
literally, for me to get out, and like 4 people had to get out first.
Oh my God!
It was the actual Testify. It was called. Testify.
Wow. I saw Phil a couple of years ago on tour, and he was still just great. He had to kind of sit down for the whole show. And it was called the Not Dead Yet tour, which I love. He's just got a sense of humor. But I had a couple friends in the band and stuff, and I went. And it was awesome. It was great. It was really good. He was away for too long. Rob's School of Music is up there in the super chat. Thanks, buddy. A lot of these folks aren't asking questions today. They're just showing appreciation. It's really kind.
So nice.
Moacir, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Hello, Pete and Tim. Greetings from Brazil. Need some help. how do you handle the change in sound with pedals when you switch between very different guitars? My levels change, as does the gain and reverb, I guess, when you got a hotter guitar or a weaker guitar, and then everything changes. Like you need to change all the knobs, right? Do you do anything to mitigate that, or you just kind of embrace it?
Well, why don't you go first, and then I'll think about my answer.
I mean, there's different things you can do. If you're talking about in a live situation, that's something that a clean boost can even out. If you're looking for a more even, a simple clean boost pedal, you can kind of set your amp up for your hottest guitar and then use a boost pedal to even out the level between your weaker guitars and your hotter guitars and driving your effects, if that makes sense. So when you go to your weaker guitar, turn on the boost so it pushes harder like the other one. You still get the same tone of the pickups and everything, but with a stronger output. So that's one thing you can do. I mean, Seymour Duncan even makes a pedal called the pickup, can't remember what they call it. It's essentially a clean boost, I think, but it's called somebody out there will say it in the chat, but that's what it is. I mean, it's meant to just kind of, liven up your pickups if they're weak and that kind of thing. So that's one thing that you can do for sure. It's one of the reasons though, that I went to Thornbuckers and a kind of when I got my Gil Yarin guitar, it was a big wake up call because it was like they were relatively low output, pickups that were voiced to be more like, the vintage PAF thing. And they were closer to my single coil guitars actually, and I was like, oh, I can go to a Les Paul now and not feel like I need to change all the knobs on the amp when I'm changing from a Strat to a Les Paul. So then I kind of got on the whole lower output humbucker kick because it was like, it was like hot humbuckers. They sort of paint you into that corner where it's like, it's tough then to go to a Tele or Strat. But what do you think?
Just like you, what I do is I find a pedal that can actually just hide itself. That's just a practical thing. And you talked about this once. If you take a compressor and you set it right, it can just be a volume boost.
Compressor, totally.
Yeah. So any pedal you can find that actually just kicks up the level without changing the tone, exactly what you're talking about. Whatever you've got, whatever you can get. And so all you have to do is step on something and the problem is solved. That's what you're talking about. You pick up the new guitar, right? The problem is solved. You step on something. You can even set up a chain where it's two pedals together if you need to do that. So it's a workaround.
And you use a volume pedal a lot too, which is another way to mitigate a hot, right? That you're riding a lot.
But the problem with that live, it kind of turns you, it takes away your kind of rock thing because if you're constantly looking for a spot on a volume pedal, now I think they do have volume pedals where you can find a notch or something.
But I guess even the guitar, the volume knob too, on something like I know when I was playing with Don Henley, like Stuart Smith, great guitar player, always had great tones. He's never on 10 on his volume on his guitar. He goes to a 335, and he told me, oh yeah, a lot of the time I got the volume on 3 or 4, and he might have a drive pedal on or something. He's still running it. Like then he'll just bring it up for the solo or.
I talked about Phil X with that. I talked to Phil about that the other day. He does the same thing because his guitars are dead simple. It's just got one pickup, and he makes it so that the bridge pickup, when he turns down to 3 or 4, it's clean. So he does the same thing. I think the really manly way to do it, and I don't do it this way at all because I'm kind of in the studio all the time, is with the volume knob. You should never forget that and never rule it out. I mean, 7 on any Gibson, 7, or I'm sure in your guitar too, it's a great tone.
Yeah, 7 or 8 is, and Scott Henderson does that all the time. I mean, that's how he kind of, he's always doing that. So remember to use your volume controls on your guitars for sure. It's like a great way to kind of control that output.
The other thing I would say, I'll let you go, but the other thing I would say is you might look at not changing guitars as much. I mean,
right, sure. Find one.
I mean, if you're the Edge and you have somebody working the system for you, you can have a new guitar in every song. But let me ask you this, Pete, when you do a live gig, how many different guitars do you use?
Yeah, it depends on things like tunings and what, if there was a reason to do it, then I'll change. But given that was really what making my signature guitar was about trying to find one instrument that I could play as much as possible on a show where I didn't have to change,
See, that's the real solution to his problem is maybe give up the idea that you have to have all these different guitars on stage.
Yeah, and embracing the different outputs of the guitars, because that's another thing. I used to want to make all my guitars feel the same and the same neck and fret size, and it makes me uncomfortable. Now it's like, no, I'll switch to the, like picking up the Supro that's short scale or whatever is for a thing, and then going to the hot guitar for the next is a thing. And so that's kind of. But if you want to even them out, there is all these different ways that you can go about it, for sure, that we mentioned. A few other folks here. Is a Wimdy says, do you guys have any tips for arranging solo guitar music such as Pete's solo records or Vi and Satch? What do you think about that? Like any tips for coming up with cool solo guitar music?
So in 220, that's a difficult thing. I heard Andy Wood talking about this last week, and it's kind of with him, he feels like he's between a rock and a hard place, because if he shows his virtuosity, then it's not really a tune. Right. But if he plays a tune, it's almost like that's been done to death, and that doesn't work either. So we're in a bit of a hard spot with how to conceptualize instrumental guitar. Personally, I don't listen to that much instrumental guitar, save for when I hear it on YouTube and I love it. But when I hear it on YouTube, it's only long. Or I hear it on Instagram, it's only 30 seconds long. I mean, I don't know if we can solve it in the next 60 seconds, but in 2020, it's a very hard thing to conceptualize how you want to show yourself as a guitar player. I mean, I listen to these chill hop. Tyler Larson from Music Is the Greatest Tip. He listens to chill hop music in his house all day long. And so I found it, and it's like these really kind of, it's like hip hop without the vocal. So it's a really cool track. A lot of guitar players, and then they stay in a sort of a mood and a soundscape.
Yep.
And I want you to weigh in on this. How do you be the rock guy and do that in 2020? What's the best way to do that in 2020?
I go back to the intrinsic, like raw human nature, whatever worked for Jeff Beck and Joe Satriani is a great example. In my clinic that I go and do, I would use the song "Always With Me, Always With You" as an example, because Joe came out with a record in whatever it was, 87, 88, Surfing with the Alien, that is one of the only platinum, multi-million selling instrumental rock guitar records of all time. So before him, you didn't really have anybody that had done it in the rock sort of idiom. You had Jeff Beck, and that was it for those types of that type of music. To me, I might be missing somebody, but I don't think so. So it's like, so Joe, to the point where you got to keep in mind. I remember reading interviews with him where he was like, the label came to him and said, "You got to go on tour," and he was like, "Tour? What do you mean?" Like, because it was like, I'm an instrumental rock. I put out this record it was this weird, wacky song. It's kind of like when I was interviewing Steve Vai recently, he was talking about Flexible, where it was like, these were just crazy things I was making in my house for, because Joe had a vocal band, I think, band with a singer and stuff, or maybe he was the singer, I can't remember, but it was like, the instrumental records were supposed to be kind of niche, I think. And then they're like, you got to go on the road. Like, you've got hits, basically. Satch Boogie, and then Always With Me, Always With You was a radio hit on like KLOS in LA, it's like, what? And so if we look at why, because it was completely left field and completely organic in my mind, it's on a Relatively Records, like an independent label, and this record comes out, it hits, and it just blows up. And all of a sudden he's got to go on tour. And I saw him on that tour, and it was like 5,000 people there at the, convention center or whatever in Edmonton. And it was Stu Ham on bass, and I can't remember who played drums. Might have been Jonathan Mover or something, but a trio playing instrumental rock guitar, 5,000 people at a show. That had never really happened other than Jeff Beck. So Always With Me, Always With You, I use it as an example. It starts with this arpeggiated guitar that goes for like 16 bars, and there's nothing else happening, but it's beautiful. It's a little like the guitar partner in Every Breath You Take.
Yeah.
Also goes for a long time before a vocal melody comes in, because it's so good, that you don't need anything else. You listen to it, and it's a little bit hypnotic, and it transports you to a place. And then he comes in with this melody, and he's just simply singing on the guitar, and it's beautiful. And eventually he gets to, I mean, it's a while before you get to any kind of the tapping stuff or the hammer on, pull on stuff. And it's a long, slow build. And there's a lot of melody. And that melody is in your head by the time he deviates and goes to any. So I go back to that, and I go to 'Cause We've Ended as Lovers. And that's how it's done to me, is you got to come up with something. I mean, even Eddie on little guitars, I saw my friend Toshi Yanagi the other day playing little guitars on this great Instagram clip of him, because he's doing a Van Halen cover band. Listen to Toshi play it, because he plays it perfect.
Okay.
So cool.
Great.
It's music, man. I mean, the stuff he's playing is not shred. It's not, but he's playing this Eddie Van Halen guitar part, the whole intro to Little Guitars before Dave comes in, and Toshi really played it. Just everybody go to Toshi's Instagram and watch him do it. He's got the tone and the feel, and it sounds awesome, and he's just killing it. But it's so damn musical, and it's just this beautiful little piece of music that he transports you. So that's what you've got to do. It doesn't matter how fast you play, how many notes you play. It's about it's somewhat of an intangible, but there it is. And Always With Me, Always With You. In certainly Joe had it in and certainly Jeff Beck, 'Cause We've Ended as Lovers. I mean, that is just absolutely unbelievable, and that's what you got to do. That's how you do it. And I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, I would say I did a solo record that I'm still really proud of, and I used songs that I had written with songwriters that had words and melodies. So it was the same thing for me.
You took songs that had vocals and then turned them into
yeah. So I just used the melodies, and whenever there was a weak point or something that didn't translate to guitar, I just changed it and made it stronger.
Yeah.
And then when it came to the bridge, I did some change, and then I did like an 8-bar solo, and then I went crazy on the outro. It's kind of the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I guess that really is still the best way in some ways. I mean, I could imagine an instrumental record that had a cool riff and then a cool, simple melody, and then a departure where the guitar player wails, and then on to the next song. It's exactly what you're talking about.
Jeff
Melody,
Beck,
and then exactly.
Steve Stevens sent me a song yesterday. It's great. Exactly what he's working on a new website, I guess, and he's doing a track for it or something to put. I don't know if it plays when you go to the website, but he sent me this tune. Yeah. He's got it so good because his influences are that Jeff Beck and stuff, and it's exactly what we're talking about. It's a great riff. Eventually, he's burning in there, but there's so much melody. It's about song. It just comes down to songs. It's not a sport. So the sport.
And one thing that guitar players do, if you play everything you possibly can and show your amazing skills in the first 3 minutes, where do you have to go?
Yeah.
There's a philosophy where if you just withhold a little bit all the time, and then occasionally, and nobody does this, but it's a philosophy that actually works, that if you keep the listener engaged by not giving them everything, because I've had that experience where I've gone to a show and I've seen the guitar player literally work at the top of their ability for 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Kind of like you start looking around the room going, yeah, I saw that. That's him.
Yeah.
His thing. He did it.
That's it. And you tune out. Yeah. I tell folks, like, this is what my whole clinic is about, by the way, if anybody, can come out to one if we're ever doing these things again. But in the clinic, I build a song. And I start with something simple, and then I bring in something else, and then I do a variation on the riff, and then it's time for the melody. And when I go to the melody, I don't start on the downbeat. I leave a little air at the beginning of the bar, and then I play a simple melody, and I do it down low in like second position, and then I leave some air, and then I repeat it with a little variation, leave some air, and then. It's like this. I heard John Mayer say a while ago, don't start up here, because once you start up here, now that's the emotional peak on the guitars when you're up. So start down here.
Yeah.
Leave some space. It's that whole thing about leaving. You don't have to say so much. You can just keep it as long as it's good. If it's like the power of simple and saying something simple.
Hey, that's all I've got. That's at this point, everybody plays goes around me. Everybody's just.
Well, the sports aspect, but hey, if you can, It's like it's a little like Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Remember that scene where the guy comes in the beginning, he's doing all the crazy moves in the fight scene and stuff, and he's got, I don't know if he's got nunchucks or whatever, he's going crazy like this, and then Indiana Jones just pulls out the pistol and goes.
That's a good analogy.
One note, you have the more effective tool, you know. It's like
yeah, you can't go, oh, he's too good. That sucks. He's too amazing. You know, you can't do that. I mean, it's like everybody's so good these days.
Everybody's great. So just there's always going to be somebody faster and cleaner and all that. But if you got good songs and you can deliver it, you know, it's like Bob Dylan, man. He's not the greatest singer technically. It doesn't matter. John Lennon. We're not talking about, you know, Pavarotti here, you know, but it's like that connection with, you know, anyways, this is fun. This is a good discussion.
Very fun.
Right? Do either of you have a GMP Super Bass 100 watts, says Brett? I don't. Do you have one?
Is that what this is?
Well, we wouldn't know from looking, but yours is a Plexi, right? It's a 69.
It's a Plexi with a lay down transformer, and I could walk to the back of it, but I might.
It will say Super Leader Super Bass probably on the back if it's.
You want me to look?
Remember when they started? You don't have
to. I have to unplug myself. Hold on.
I've only got a 50 watt. My only vintage Marshall is a 72 50 watt.
Yeah. Touchdown.
Yours is a Super Bass?
Hole in one.
Yeah, bass spec.
Checkered flag.
Bass spec.
Super Bass.
Is it? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense because I played through that amp before and I remember it. Yeah, it's got a certain. That's cool.
Sounds great. I've actually got it sounding better. John Tucci made it sound better. The terms. If you ever need an amp worked on, take it to John Tucci. He's a retired aerospace engineer. Highly recommend him. You know, if you're in the West Valley in LA, which probably none of you are. But he made it sound really great, better than the last time you heard it, because you have really good ears for this stuff. But yeah, I love that amp. It's very clean.
Kind of clean, right? Yeah, cleaner.
Clean, yeah.
Fat. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's like Peter Frampton. His are like Jose modded, but he's got Super Bass Marshalls. His main one.
Hey, I mentioned this the other day. I actually went to Jose's behind the vacuum cleaner and had him mod an amp. Did you ever do that? The vacuum cleaner store on Van Nuys Boulevard?
No, well, I wasn't here yet, but so you had a Jose mod.
Yeah.
Did you?
Wow. I had him do a 50 watt. He made it sound really neat, and it was so great. I think that vacuum cleaner the vacuum cleaner store might still be there. Might be gone. It's probably gone. But it was there for a long time, and he had this space that he rented right behind it on this hallway, and it was this tiny space with the bench, and it was awesome. I'm so grateful that I got to experience that, and especially when I saw your video with the Jose mod. It's great.
Yeah, that amp, man. It was interesting. We were listening to that amp a little bit more the other day, and John Sykes also had an amp in at Dave's that was similar Jose Marshall and stuff. So to get to hear these amps that maybe some of my favorite guitar stuff has been recorded on, it's pretty interesting. But, you know, just going through them, they need routine maintenance and service and stuff like that. And boy, they sure sound good once they're tuned up. I'm going to get one. I'm going to get Dave to do one for me because it's a certain sound. It's this kind of vicious sound. It's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting. They're easy to play, actually. Like there's so much harmonics and stuff that it's just like everything you do kind of sounds cool. And then you just hit the simplest thing and it just goes with all his teeth.
Yeah, people, when you hear a Marshall, there's nothing like it. I got a great 50 watt Marshall when I was 19 years old, and it literally changed my life. I remember listening back. I was playing at a junior high school dance, and I could actually play with sustain, and it was like sweet and buttery. And I remember listening back to a cassette of the actual performance and going, "Oh my God, finally." But you know, it wasn't easy to find a Marshall that sounded great. Still isn't, and I do think they have to be biased just right. Everything has to be just right, though.
Yeah, when somebody like Friedman goes through them, he's got it all figured out. I mean, he can take pretty much it seems like anyone from that. And if there's something, if it sounds weak or not great, he goes through them and he's like, "Oh, here's the problem," and then they all kind of come out sounding like, you know, pretty good. Andrea is up there in the super top chat super duper thing. He says, 2 personal heroes, guys, you inspire us to become better players. Thank you so much. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Fusion 72. He's a longtime viewer. Thanks for being here, man. He's up there as well. He says, if you show your virtuosity, then it's not really a tune anymore. In quotes, he said. That is as much a self-destructive epidemic in music as gear has become, with being overly technical simply for the sake of technology itself. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we got to remember what it's all about. I agree. It's about music, and if you can say it with a million notes, like Yngwie made a career out of it, you know, and he's got, you know, legions of, and he's fascinating, you know. He's so damn musical when he plays fast, though, that it's like kind of captivating. It's not just trickery. I don't know what it is about him. It's like fire in his playing. It's so much like soul in his ridiculous fast shredding that it's like, it's kind of rare, you know. So it's so natural when he plays. It's like this flow. It's just his I guess that's what it is. It's like, he's not like, ooh, look at me. It's like, no, this is who I am. You know,
for me, it would have been John McLaughlin, because I'm a little older. When he showed up with the Mahavishnu Orchestra, his speed was not about speed. It was just about expression.
Right.
And that whole band was that way. But I grew up listening to top 40 radio themes. My love of music is songs, pure and simple. Songs first and guitar second. Now, when Hendrix showed up, I was completely taken. Clapton, all these people. But my heroes, they were slower players. So I come from loving songs on the radio that had nothing to do with guitar, and then loving guitar players who were kind of from the British blues thing and that era.
Sure.
And then later I got more into, you know, like Steely Dan, a little more sophisticated version of that with Larry Carlton and those guys. For me, I like to hear bursts of virtuosity. To me, that's the thing you can do in a context that's greater. If there's a greater context musically somehow, and you hear bursts of virtuosity, you're constantly in tune, constantly paying attention. Also, live dynamic, big thing. Whenever I sit in with somebody, I say to the drummer and everybody in the band, when my solo starts, bring it down here. Yeah. Because everybody wants to start here. If you start dynamically at 10, then the audience is going, how do I get out of here? But if I start my solo with everybody kind of at least medium volume, I can build it. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Totally. That's it, man. Yeah, it's great when you've got somewhere to go and you can have I mean, it's kind of like if you go see Mike Landau play, it's like that's his whole bag. Every solo, you know, has a flow.
An arc
down here and then goes and just takes you on a ride where it's like, you know, by the end of it, you're like feel exhilarated and exhausted to some degree in a great way, you know.
Well, you mentioned something earlier in this conversation. The solo is the peak and what you do after the peak. Because there is a point in a solo where you're going to peak. Whatever that peak means. Maybe it's a riff that you're pounding up a high on, or who knows. But you probably should move on back to the musical structure after the peak. Because that is the hardest thing, is when you build the solo to a peak and then you kind of just hang out there. That's the dangerous spot. You know, that's where it can get kind of, you know, annoying or whatever. So anyway.
Yeah. Where it's like, all right, time to wind it up. Yeah.
Go back to playing rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Knowing when to step off and go back to the thing, and how you do that, how you get back. It's Cohen's up in Ontario, and he's just saying hi, man. He's been a subscriber for a long time. Great to have you here, man. I'm far back in the chat. I better move down here. Avi says, Pete and Tim, best combo on YouTube. Thanks, man.
If we can maybe get is it Matt Ferguson? No, Matt's his brother. Who's our friend over at Yamaha? Your friend.
Oh, Matt.
It's Matt. What's his brother's name?
I don't know.
Gary, his drummer. Yeah, have you ever played with Gary? His brother's a great drummer. Anyway,
really? I didn't know.
If Matt Ferguson can put together a place for us to do Pete and Tim, maybe we can do it again. Anyway, we can move on.
Good idea.
Yeah, I talked to him about it. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, he talked about trying it one time and see how it works.
Show up. Well, let's talk to him, man. Do they ever have a facility for it? You know?
Yeah.
Folks, you heard it here first. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I mean, even if it was once a month, or if it was, it would be once, something like that. It'd be great.
Yeah, well, once we get through this thing, we should give that a try.
Yeah. The Line 6 facility out there is it's gorgeous. I mean, with all the they do own all these vintage amps, and they've got all these cabinets, and they've got a studio. Really, it's like a nice, it looks like a full blown studio. So they've got this great facility. But that's a great idea. I didn't even.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, Matt's a good dude. I've known Matt since the Gibson days. I mean, since the '90s. So yeah.
Yeah, I used to do sessions with his brother. So anyway, that's beside the point. Okay.
Let's see here. Tim, please tell us about your channel, says Jacob, from a business perspective. You told me once you employ people to deal with the channel. I guess he's just wondering how everybody does these YouTube channels different, and sort of everybody's got an angle of what they're, I guess, trying to achieve or accomplish or whatever. And maybe he just wants a little insight into what you do.
Yeah, I'll try and get it wrapped up really quickly. My business is a membership website for guitar players. They can either purchase monthly or yearly, and it's going really, really well. It's basically over 100 hours of lessons and training and content and guests and everything. It's a huge thing, and I add to it, several times a year. I keep adding content to it,
and it's called the Studio Guitar Masterclass, right?
Well, it's just called the Masterclass, and I offer a free trial because my goal is, if there are 10 people who try it, I want the one person who really loves it, and we send the other 9 away. I mean, it's really for the person. It's meant for the person who loves it, but it's an enormous amount of content. So that is this, and that supports the employees. I have a full-time film editor, a part-time webmaster, customer service person, part-time tablature guy in Italy who's awesome, friend of mine, and then a couple of other film editors who overflow when I get busy. So there is a pretty hefty spend every month, but the business does well, and that it's just a joy to have a product rather than a service. So I spent my entire life in clients. I got to play great to get paid, and I got to do it on an hour by hour basis.
Sure.
This is a product that sells to customers, so it earns money whether I'm actually doing the work or not. I do the work every day, but then it turns into a product, and that earns me money while I'm sleeping. Yeah. The YouTube channel for me is purely promotion. That is my advertising.
Yeah.
And we work hard. The irony of it is we work actually harder on the YouTube videos than we do on the masterclass videos. Because on a teaching video, you can be really, really kind of slow and easy and have fun and sweat it. But on a YouTube video, as you know, you have to really step it up, because YouTube is so competitive. Mm-hmm. So we work really, really hard on a YouTube video, and that is for advertising eyeballs to the masterclass. I actually lose money on YouTube because the small amount of money that I make in advertising it doesn't even touch the amount of money it takes us to make videos. So I hope that it
was a brilliant.
But the masterclass does really well. It's I love it, and it's a successful business, doing well.
It was a brilliant thing that you did, and the foresight and the amount of work it took and the discipline that it must take to build up enough material to launch something like the masterclass, and the whole while you were doing YouTube to build a subscriber base, and then eventually when you were ready and you felt like, you said, new masterclass is available now, go to my website, and you'd built a big email list by then and everything using YouTube so it was this brilliant thing that you did. And I've learned a lot just from peripherally watching. One of the most important things that you can do out there, I think, if you're trying to, be a success at anything, it doesn't have to be music, but certainly music, but is surround yourself with good people and good mentors. And you've been that for a lot of people, including me, seeing, hey,
thank you.
There's a lot of folks in the music business that are grumblers and, complainers and stuff like that. I try and push all that away, and I try and find the people that are like with the vision that are like going forward. And you're absolutely the one of the primary folks in my life that's been that. So, everything from the way you built your studio, on just the way you conduct your business, and the fact that maybe a lot of people don't know, but Tim built the studio that he's got there in a time where the studio business was declining, in LA and all around the world, and folks were, starting to record at home and do, production, budgets were going away because of things like Napster and all that. And meanwhile, Tim's building a studio at home where he can have producers come over, and for a fraction of the cost of what it used to cost to go to Sunset Sound or whatever and get cartage and all the gear brought there, now a producer could go to his house and he's got everything there around him in his little, spaceship capsule of a zone that you built out there. And it was a brilliant move. And so things like that, and then with building the masterclass, just amazing to watch what you've done. So
well, thank you. I feel very fortunate, and it is a difficult business to grow old in, and so you have to find ways to adapt and change and reinvent yourself. Yeah. And I think a lot of what's great about right now is a lot of musicians are realizing, the necessity to actually have a digital product, to have, and I recommend, I'm looking at the chat here and I'm looking at anybody. I'm kind of an evangelist, and I kind of help people to get in this. If you can make a 2 or 3 hour digital product where you're showing something on the guitar, that's something you can sell for the rest of your life. And you will find people to buy that if they come to your concert, are online. And it's kind of like having people used to sell CDs where you can sell a digital, educational product for $30, $50, even more if you want, and you can sell that for the rest of your life. Once it's done, it's done. And there's
always going to be new players wanting to learn.
Yeah, people can click on a link, just give them a link. Anywhere you can put that link, they'll click on it and they'll go, yeah, I think I'm going to grab this.
The material you teach in a guitar lesson on a one-on-one basis in 1 hour could be worth, it's hard to put a price on it, right? I mean, if it's you teach, for the instructors out there, just record it, in a decent quality, high quality kind of way, and you've got a digital product now. And now that lesson that you spend an hour teaching instead can go on and be, as opposed to making $40 an hour or $100 an hour or even $300 an hour, now it's something that 5 years from now will still be generating income for you. So it's a brilliant thing. Definitely. What else we got here? Let's see. Oh, somebody was up there and I just missed another top chat, but I'll find it here. In the meantime, Dennis says, is Matt Ferguson any relation to Dan Ferguson, the guitar player from the Barney Miller theme song? And you knew who that was right away.
Yeah, Dan Ferguson. He was hot. When I moved here in 1980, Dan Ferguson was one of the hot session players. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But no, they're not related.
One of the other top chats here, I'm going to find it. I can. I'll ask another question here. Tor says, why doesn't anyone do videos on classic standard songs, going through the chord progression, scales, arpeggios, techniques used, and how to figure out what key it's in? Am I the only one that wants that? I don't know. Personally, Tor, I mean, when I learned things I just did the classic rock show tour, and so I had to learn a bunch of classic rock songs, and I find all kinds of great lessons on YouTube teaching what you're saying. Really, I mean, it's like tons of, you can always go and search out the ones, and the ones that have, the least amount of dislikes and the most views are the ones that are probably the best. But I find, so I had to learn, oh God, what's the Led Zeppelin song that we played? Why can't I remember the name of it right now? Was it Ramble On? Yeah, it was Ramble On. And I found the best Ramble On lesson where this guy, it was like all kinds of little
things. It was probably Shut Up and Play.
I don't know.
Was it Shut Up and Play?
Maybe.
Okay, the guy that I know, this guy, Andy in Canada, and he has the best channel for this. So I encourage you. It's called Shut Up and Play, and it's I don't even know what Andy's face looks like, and he's huge, and he does the best tutorials on famous rock songs in the world. I bet it was Andy.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good. I mean, it was like I learned all these little, variations, and things that were just so terrific.
Was it a red Les Paul? He just read Les Paul.
No, it was acoustic.
It was acoustic.
It might be a different guy then, but I think I know the guy that you're talking about. Somebody saying, Joe Harvey saying, too many guitar lesson courses here on YouTube. Sorry, but it's true. Well, that's like anything, right? I mean, there's too many guitar teachers in any given city, but you go to the one that's good, right? So I don't know how else to, you seek out. Obviously, if you want a studio guitar master class, get Tim Pierce's. Go to the guy that's got 1,000 albums. So
well, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. You and I don't do lessons on YouTube anymore. I kind of do just entertainment. Because that's the thing. I mean, to really answer the question, I don't teach famous songs on YouTube anymore because I would rather do my own thing. Even though I actually might be able to get more views if I teach Ramble On or whatever. And then I teach famous songs on my masterclass because I don't own the copyrights. So now I leave that to somebody else. I mean,
yeah. Well, and the material that, learning songs is one thing, and a lot of people can teach that, but showing how to build a beautiful original solo or something over is a whole nother, that's how to come up with the, and so that's what you go to Tim for, So once again, it's about an idea. Create something that not everyone else is doing. So we've got two different people here saying, hey, I can't find this thing that I'm looking for on YouTube. And then somebody else is saying there's too much on YouTube of people teaching guitar, so it's like, it's like, it's just different opinions, you know what I mean, about the whole thing. I say go to the person that's showing you, go to the person that is drawing, if you want to learn how to play a spot on note for note version of a song, don't go to Tim's. If you want to learn how to become a better musician overall and be able to play with other people and be great in sessions, go to Tim's, So you're teaching us a different thing, and it's great because you've got a target, and it's a really valuable thing. Clifford's up there in the top chat. Avid watcher, both channels, and subscriber to Masterclass. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Has Tim had any Masterclass videos blocked by YouTube? Well, the Masterclass videos aren't on YouTube, are they?
Exactly. So that they're safe. They're not on YouTube. But yes, I have. These days, it's much better on YouTube. A few years ago, and you and I were working together at that moment. It was right before we interviewed Eddie Kramer. The Purple Rain YouTube video. After seeing Andy from Shut Up and Play do one, and a bunch of other people, and I got a copyright strike, which is the worst thing because you get 3 copyright strikes and they shut your channel down. It was awful. And I wrote Prince's people and said, I'm so sorry I did this, blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason, they looked at me and thought, this guy, maybe it's because I was promoting the masterclass. For whatever reason, I got a copyright strike. And they actually, for a while, I had strict limitations on my videos. I remember we did 3 Eddie Kramer videos because I couldn't do a long video on YouTube because that was part of my punishment for having a copyright strike.
For like 6 months or something, right?
Yeah. But at a certain point, they just relaxed. Somebody in Prince's office, it was after he passed away, of course, I think early on decided to actually take it off because it was like 4 months later, everything was lifted. And I had no more restrictions. But I wrote him a really apologetic email. Now, these days, it's great because all that happens to some of our friends, sometimes they get blocked. That's not a copyright strike. Getting blocked is not a big deal. I mean, Rick Beato gets blocked, and then a month later, they'll unblock him. So these are small things. What I do now, I like to show other people's material on YouTube. I like to use it because sometimes it helps the video. What happens now is they do a copyright claim. And the minute you get that copyright claim, you can breathe a sigh of release because it means they're going to monetize it, but you're basically scot-free.
Right.
They're not going to block it. Your video can go out in the world and have 1 million views. You're not going to get paid. Or in some situations, you're going to share the profits. That's fine too. But these days, you're pretty safe. You can actually even use somebody's record. The algorithm, the robots will actually identify it immediately, make a copyright claim. Your video can be up forever, get tons of views. It's just you won't make.
And it makes sense because I never understood why they wanted to fight that anyway, why they didn't do that from the beginning. Because it's like if you can't beat them, join them, and it's just more exposure for your material, and you get paid. So it's like for the person that owns the copyright. So let's see here. It was Laurel Davis up there in the top chat, just expressing thanks to both of us as favorite YouTubers. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Eric Johnson was asking a question, I think, about chorus, but I'm not sure what the question is, so I'm just searching through the chat here to see if I can figure it out. How about, let's take another one here until I find that from Guitar Nut. How do you stay motivated other than to pay the bills? Do you ever get burned out with guitar?
You're asking me that?
Yeah, like
okay. So, yeah. The thing about being a musician, you have to actually go past burnout. you have to get burned out and then push past it and then push past it again. So it's a kind of a different game. We devote your life to this thing, and you might agree with me, but you learn that it's a marathon. And if you get burned out, if you're in this for life, that's not an excuse. I mean, I'm kind of just taking a point of view on this as extreme for a second. You get burned out all the time, and especially if you're working for somebody and putting down parts by yourself, there can be a different kind of burnout, because you'll go, oh, this sucks. Why does this suck? I got to do better. And you keep fighting that, and you fight and fight and fight that. But really, burnout, I mean, you have to get healthy, and you have to have a life. You can't let your life collapse. You should try and have a girlfriend or a wife and, go do stuff on the outside. But burnout for a musician, guys that do it, they actually push past burnout every single day. Is that a good answer? Can you comment on that?
I think so. I mean, I think it's difficult. I mean, you got to earn a living. And if you earn your living playing the instrument, it's kind of tough, because it's like, now you got to, I have those days where it's like, man, I just don't feel like doing this right now. And I really need to make some money this week. So if it's like, there's those times, or you just don't want to go on stage. But for me, I don't know. For me, anyway, I'm lucky because I just feel like I can step away from it for a minute, and it generally within the next day or so, I come back and then I got fresh ears again. I just needed to reset my mind a little bit. It's not so bad.
I think for everybody, it's different. My trick these days is I work really hard for the first half of the day. I make work mandatory, till late afternoon.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I make work optional, to where I might be swimming, I'm walking, I might be goofing off. I might come back and visit work. That's how I handle it. But I remember doing sessions every day and being burned out at having to come up with creative parts. It was so hard for me to do 2 songs, right?
Yeah.
You get there at noon. I'd get there at 10 to set up my gear. We'd start at noon. We'd finish 2 songs. And then at 6 p.m., I've worked really hard.
Yeah.
Everything I could think of on 2 songs. They put up a 3rd song, and you go, okay.
Yeah.
I got to dig in and pull it out.
Not like that feeling, but I know that feeling where it's like, oh, really? We're going to do another one? I thought they were going to let us go, or at least go to dinner.
Exactly. Every musician wants to really hit it hard. We're like racehorses. Every musician wants to be a racehorse, burn it down, and then run away. And, I've had situations where I would do 10 songs in one day, and really kind of people were like, wow.
So Kurt Biscayne always told me that you were brilliant, because he'd be getting like because he's in the same position. He's a drummer. He's over there playing, and he'd be doing a session with you, and he'd be like, man, I'm getting hungry. He'd be like, God, we're going to do another tune. Okay. And then he'd look up, and you'd be in your bag, and you'd have a sandwich, and you'd be like,
exactly.
He was like, damn, he made a sandwich. That's brilliant.
Well, it goes. Everybody forgets to order. By the time everybody's hungry, by the time the order goes in, and then it takes 2 hours to get there. So you're having lunch 3 hours late, and everybody's in a dark mood, and nobody can concentrate because the blood sugar dropped. And it happened to me so many times to stop every morning on the way to the session and get a sandwich from the deli. Sometimes I just throw the whole thing away. Other times I'd eat half of it, but it was like.
That's brilliant. You were in a better, you're like, yeah, let's go. 3rd tune, let's go. I'm good. Oh, that's good stuff. Let's see here. My peak. Poo Ninja up there in the chat. He says my peak has a whammy dive right after. That's how he gets past the peak. That's true. In the 80s, it was really easy. Just hit a harmonic and.
Every trick in the book, man. I'll put that on my list. Every trick in the book works.
Crash the car. That's good. Some folks are saying this is a great hang. Poo Ninja it was Guitar Nut and Joe Harvey. Great hang. I agree. I'm having fun too. Okay, I'm gonna go down to the bottom of the chat and see what we got here. Somebody's asking me, Chris Post, about the PT-15 IR head and cab. Current rig is fine for what he's doing now, but his question is, will the PT propel me to the next level in playing out, recording, and inspiring me? Geez, I don't know, dude. I mean, that's a tall order, I mean, it's, for me, it's like this. It's like good gear can help facilitate the music, you know, and make your life easier. And if it's inspiring, you know, the quicker to get from point A to point B, which is like plugging stuff in and all that, to making music with the guitar, whatever facilitates that good tone, the least amount of crap you got to do before you can get to the good note and feel like, yeah, this is inspiring, is what it's all about. And so that's what we try to put into the amp. I don't know. I mean,
Can I comment? Can I comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Do you have more to say?
No, I mean, I'd love to know your perspective on that, because I feel like your studio is a reflection of that. Like, you've got an easy setup where you can sit down and start making music and get to the good notes right away. So,
well, it's about your amp. You know, I have a video that I will release of us going through your amp, and
we did that, didn't we? We did.
I was super impressed. Not only is it a great amp, but it's also basically kind of has all of the technological features of the OX in some ways, right? I mean, the interface and the stuff you can do direct coming out of it is so sophisticated. I was kind of blown away by the sounds that you can get not only through a cabinet, but direct, right?
Direct. Yeah, I mean, and just trying to fast.
It's pretty scary good that way. I mean, if people knew that it actually kind of it's kind of, but it also does what an Axe-Fx and a Kemper and an aux do in some ways, because you have those sounds direct. And
just making the ease of use factor a big thing. That was what we did, you know, the great tones, and then just you can get to those great tones super quick and without a lot of screwing around, and focus on playing the guitar, because I think that's what the majority of guitar players want. So in that respect,
I recommend it.
I'm leaning more towards that these days in my simplicity, and I need the versatility, but I need the simplicity too. And I want it to work in every situation: backstage, you know, hotel room, on stage, through a cabinet, through headphones,
and through a DAW, through your DAW,
through
recording.
DAW, everything. Yeah. Just you know, the quicker you can get to the good sounds is the better. So if that helps you, then I think I'm making a demo right now for the Fractal FM3 from Axe-Fx, the Fractal folks, you know, and the thing is amazing. And to their credit, I think they're bridging that gap a little bit. Their units have always been somewhat complex, and I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think for the tweaker kind of guitar players and stuff, I think it's a great, you know, it's really amazing sounding stuff that they've come up with over the years. And the new one is a little simpler to use. I think they've maybe taken it into account. I'm looking at it right here. I've been really knocked out with it actually the past few days. It sounds great. I mean, and it's relatively easy to use. So I like the trend towards this. You know, it's good that, like getting, you know, the computer editor for it is I think 100% necessary. Not 100%, but it makes it so much more easy to get in and edit, and then it's really easy to make.
Well, I have the Axe-Fx 3. You're not talking about the Axe-Fx 3, are you?
No, this is like it's the actually just probably plug it here and show you. It's the new small version. I have a 3 here as well, but this is the new kind of portable guy that is basically
that's awesome.
It's like a simpler Axe-Fx 3 and a foot pedal thing.
Good for them. I mean, I love them so much. I bought one. I bought an Axe-Fx 3 right pandemic. Just because I think there's nothing like it. I mean, it's so advanced. I have them sitting right here, an Axe-Fx 3. Be curious to see how you use that one, because it is complex, but I love it and I believe in the company, and I actually bought one. I paid for it. Yeah.
That's great. And I mean, I think that they, the video I'm making, I mean, it's a schizophrenic piece of music that's about 4 minutes long. And I'm going to call it like 10 parts, 10 tones, something like that. Because I came up with 10 completely different guitar sounds on it and save the presets. I want to give the presets away, I think. And then the piece of music goes from like, you know, atmospheric kind of, you know, to crunchy rock, to like, sort of soulful, like, you know, with like John Mayer style, you know, solo, into like metal. And then it just goes like boom, 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 all these different, and I'm going to put it out next week, but I just try to make 10 really fun presets on it, and you know, just get musical with it. Like, that's what I always try and do, I guess. But it's been fun. So I like the trend that I'm seeing with, I think, even them, who maybe in the past they could be, their units are a little bit like heady, like it's like running a computer a little bit, but this thing's actually they're getting easier to use, and it's a really, really good sounds and stuff. So I can't wait to put the video out, but it's a nice trend. I don't think as guitar players, we want to be computer engineers, or something. We want to get to making music as fast as possible.
I agree. You want simplicity, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, we all spend enough time dealing with it just to get through the day. I mean, you want, and even the greatest guitar players, like the greatest guys, always have super simple rigs. It's always used to astonish me. Now I understand. The amp that they like that works, it's not going to break. The few pedals they need to get their tones. The guitar that like David Gilmour, whoever. It's always reduced to the essentials.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like if we look at the back, I got a PT15 here that's not plugged in, so I can show you the back. On the back of this, okay, on the original 100-watt version they had, we had a depth control, a feedback control, all this stuff. So even on the back, it's like basically what you got here is the tube buffered effects loop, a foot switch jack, the line out, and a switch to disable the IRs. And that's it, And then here, you got a simple, like the speaker out jack with the one with the red is the one that'll disable. If you pull the cable out of here, speaker cable, there's no cable plugged in, then the load's active, And then the other one up here, if you plug in there, the load is still active in parallel with the cabinet acting like an attenuator. That's it. It's like, I thought the depth, like, do we need to do a line level effect loop? Not really. We'll just make it work kind of with like line and pedal level stuff. So we made that simple. You just plug your stuff in and it just works. It's like so simple, It's just the stuff you need. And yet it's really versatile. So I don't know. It's the simpler. I'm putting a focus on that, like more and more and more. Like we don't need 20 million features on this, I think it's just really important. Just keep the basics there, and yet make it versatile somehow. So, Eternalism says he can't sound great without 4 refrigerator racks and then still not good. Come on now. Let's see. Noise with Mommies says, that's my problem. I'm always looking at new stuff and asking myself how far down a rabbit hole that device is going to take me. Well, that's what I always recommend when people are looking at the different like modeling units is I'll recommend like, well, ask yourself like whether you're the type of person that wants to plug straight into the amp or if you really like tweaking. If you want to plug straight into the amp, find the simplest one you can get, right? Don't overwhelm yourself.
It's funny these days.
Well, I've lost your audio there, Tim. Can't hear you for some reason. Yeah, it looks like the mic's cut out. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Got you now.
And now I can't hear you.
Oh, really?
Oh. Maybe should I reboot it, maybe?
Yeah, try rebooting. It looks like the mic's cutting in and out. Or you can flip to use the internal mic on your computer, possibly. Maybe that'll work. I hear you now. I can hear that it's... You got audio there?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello? Test?
Oh, it's unfortunate.
I can't hear you, Pete, so I'm going to just try and rejoin. Should I try?
That's cool. I'll try and take another. Let's see here. John 5 has like 3 Boss pedals, says Eric Johnson. That's true. And he's kind of like a Morello kind of guy. He makes it work, He's get some cool sounds. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I just had to reboot. This StreamYard is a great thing. Okay. And I did plug into the hard line, so I was good about that. I plugged into a cable. What were we talking about? I had something really fun I was going to talk about.
Oh, we were talking about, I don't know, simplicity in gear. And I don't know if there's something else that somebody jar our memory here in the chat. I can't remember either. Patrick Carroll says, Tim, I'm a huge fan. I asked Pete this, but you've mentioned you have smaller hands. How do you add vibrato after bending without wrapping your thumb around the neck?
It's not hard to do vibrato. The hard thing is that, you see guitar players who are able to do these beautiful, stretches. And I can do that only because the guitar is up here. Now, I can't play, because the guitar is here, I can do some stretches. But, like Hendrix had huge hands. Rusty Anderson has huge hands.
Does he?
Lyle Workman has huge fingers, really long. And you see these guys, they can just do more. Vibrato's not a problem. No problem. Small hands. And if you have small hands.
Bending. If you'd bend a note, well, you do wrap your thumb around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he does. Oh.
And like I said, get a guitar that plays itself. Get one of your guitars. These guitars that are like Ferraris. I'm just into them these days.
That's a pretty PRS.
This is my new one, and he brought it because of the, he thought the top was really exceptional. It sounded exceptional. I'm lucky to have it.
I like the bound neck too. It's really cool. Yeah. Thank you both for your wisdom, says Chris, and inspiration. Thanks, Chris. How do you deal with a client that doesn't know what they want? Are reference songs and specs a must? What do you do if you get a client that's like, I don't know, make it more orange?
Okay, so I'm at a point in my life where I will actually say, you have to tell me, you have to do better at this. I have very little patience anymore. And I spent my whole life being endlessly patient and just taking it. But now, I basically tell them, you have to actually let me know what you want. I'll stop the session and send them home if we hit an escalation on that. I will. I've done it.
I like it. You're at that point.
So if you want to be, if you're in the part of your career where you got to win every time and you got to be patient and you got to, the person is important and it's not their fault. They just don't know how to speak the language. I mean, you and I have both done this. Let's say it's an artist and she's a singer and she's 15 years old or 17 years old and she wants it to sound a certain way. You just have to stop your ego from flaring up and go, okay, would you like it clean or dirty? Maybe they don't know that language. So you just demonstrate stuff to them. Let me try this. Let me try that. And that is the greatest skill you can have in the studio, is being endlessly patient and showing them options until they hear something that's what they want and they don't know how to speak the language. It might take a half hour.
So do you find it's helpful to have, like, build your arsenal of, like, here's my edge, dotted eighth, or here's what Eddie Van Halen would do with a dirty tone, or here's what, McLaughlin would do, or here's what, and like go, well, I'm going to shift my mental focus to try 5 different things here that different.
Yeah. And another quick way to do it is, because we all have Spotify and YouTube in front of us 100% of the time. You could say to the artist, play me an example of what's a song? What are you thinking of? And usually they can tell you, oh, it's this song by Muse. Or it's this Bruno Mars song, or it's this Taylor Swift song. And it's so easy because every guitar sound is basically, it's a known thing. So if I hear a Taylor Swift song and that's what they really wanted, they just didn't know how to say that. We can go to that song, I can hear the part. That gives them the confidence to know that I know what they want, even though neither one of us knew how to talk about it. So that's probably the best solution.
Excellent advice. Yeah. And like, not getting your ego, keep your ego in check. When somebody says, yeah, that's not it, like, I just want something else, just getting, because I remember like working for Linda Perry and I had a lot of that, like where she's just like not hearing it or whatever. She says, try something else. She just said, just try something else. It could be, plug in a pedal or go get a different guitar, or it could be hit the neck pickup and roll the volume down or whatever. Just try something completely different, see what comes out. And what's funny is when you do that and you don't get like frustrated, they don't get frustrated either. They'll be like rolling with the new idea, and then they'll listen to it and give that some feedback. And right, you know what I mean? It's cool. It's like, it keeps the ego. So you just take the ego out of most of this stuff, I find.
And the trick is, and I've talked about this before, you have to actually allow your ego to get obliterated, okay? And then within the next few seconds, you have to bring it back at full force.
To perform the part.
Exactly.
With conviction. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. I never really thought about it like that, but that's great. That's genius.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do.
Yeah, like turning it on and off and on and off and on and off. I always say like
hard.
from the perspective of the sideman, it's a little bit different. But I wrote a Premier Guitar column on the concept of like Clark Kent and Superman, because you got to be, as a sideman, 1 second you're out on stage with the rock star, and the rock star wants you to go toe to toe with them and walk to the front of this, like Phil X, right? You got to walk out on the ego ramp, play to 80,000 people, and do all that stuff, and go crazy. And the artist wants you to step up and play like that. And then when you walk off stage, it's like you don't get to be John Bon Jovi. There, I said it. Yeah. You got to like, now you're part of the camp. He's the rock star. And now you're like, so he's in a like maybe different ride to the airport or whatever on the private jet, and you're going to fly commercial or whatever. And you just tone it down and you become part of the crew.
Yeah.
And then, but when you get on stage, you got to, and that's the job. And if you don't want to do the job, then, it's like.
Well put, Pete. That's this a different version of that same difficult thing. And you have to be able to go way up and down on the ride.
I never thought about it from the studio perspective, that you actually have to turn the ego on for the part and then like back it off. Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like, I would say like it's a little bit like being an actor in some ways. Like you have to be in the, like, if you're playing some guitar solo that's like kind of heroic, you got to be in the moment. Imagine yourself like, like the vibrato and laying into it and all that. And then like, now tone it down. Let's see. Adam says, I've never seen Tim with a Sir before other than Pete's. How come you don't have a Sir? John Sir will love that question.
Well, I saw John at NAMM once, and he said, I need to build something for you. And then we both went like, whoop.
Right.
Here's the reason, is because I loved Tom Anderson and we became friends. And he just fed me guitars, which I would buy. I would buy them. I bought them. And then when I met Paul, he just kept feeding me guitars. So I just have had other friends who've made these guitars for me. That's the only reason, literally the only reason. Now I've met Floyd Rose, and I love his guitars. I've got this Stratocaster that I drool over.
The white one, right?
Yeah, it sounds so good, and it's made so well. It's got all that early 80s aesthetic to it,
Yeah.
And it's got the speed plate on half of it. So what the speed plate is?
In the middle of the guitar? It's like,
so if I go back to the bridge, I have a piece of wood that's stopping me from, you can hear it clicking. And it makes me play faster by the bridge because I can't sink the pick down. And then if that starts to annoy me, I move it towards the neck pickup and it's gone. So it's more traditional. So it's a half speed plate. And I love that. But I just love the guitar and the way it sounds. So I've just got different friends. That's all. That's a whole other reason. That's the only reason.
Yeah, somebody's saying in the chat, they're saying before anyone makes it competitive, John and Tom are great friends. That's absolutely true. They're good pals. So
they actually share secrets. They help each other.
Yeah.
They help each other. Yeah.
John has a lot of respect for Tom Anderson and always has nothing but great things to say about, he's one of the people that I feel like he looks up to or is on the level, like his peer, you know what I mean? He's like, he really respects him as a,
well, Tom, every guitar is sold. There are no guitars available. Nothing he builds is not sold before it leaves the factory. Nothing.
Yeah. And he's kind of kept a nice, like even, I think he's got 15 people shop or something like that. And he's never tried to get too big or expand, or maybe we need to make guitars overseas or any of that stuff. He just does what he does. For like 30 years.
You know what he told me? He said he showed me, this is the first CNC machine. He actually told me, you can check this, but he was the first guy to take a computer machine to fashion necks and bodies. The first one.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and he told his wife, this is going to be as much as our mortgage, but I think I should get this. This is really going to be a good thing. Huh. Check to that, but that's what he told me. I mean,
I'm sure John would. He'd probably be like, yeah. I mean, John might say, well, that's where I got the idea from. I have no idea, but
And now I love guitars that are built that way because they're all consistent and the necks are the best. I prefer. I don't like handmade necks. I just don't, because I want a more precise thing. I want perfection.
Yeah.
I want perfection.
The repeatability is an impressive thing. I mean, when you see them work, I mean, the amount of precision as a CNC is just like. When it's in a body or whatever, I've seen them in the shop. It's unbelievable. Let's see here, looking for another question. George says, Do you prefer the sound of single-channel amps with overdrive pedals or multi-channel amps? Or do you
You're
like?
asking me?
Yeah, like how do you feel
Yeah,
about that? You've got a lot of single channel,
yeah,
but you have some multi-channel amps there too.
I do. I just did a video that I put out yesterday on the Diesel VH4 because I rediscovered it. It was sitting next to me. I forgot about it. Hadn't turned it on in 2 years, and it's all the 4 channels are awesome. But I have to say, most of my life is spent getting a nice sweet spot in any amp I'm using. I find the sweet spot, which is just enough gain so where it starts to compress. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Just enough gain to where there's not too much transient. It starts to compress, starts to open, starts to kind of get even.
Yeah.
And then I hit it with pedals. So absolutely, 1 channel on an amp, a different natural pedals in front of it. That's my game.
Yeah. And it's like a really super valid approach. I mean, it's kind of like John Shank's whole thing too, like, great amp, kind of just crank to the point of break up and then back it off a little or hit it with a pedal, and you get all this options, right?
Yeah, that's what I do. I love it. I saw Tom Bukovac do that. We did a Rob Thomas record together a number of years ago, and he just brought up Fender Princeton, plugged it into a 412 with his pedal board, and I'd never heard anybody over that 4 days get so many different guitar sounds. And it was just with these carefully chosen, overdrives and boost pedals and stuff. It was amazing. So that's where I realized, oh, you can do that. And then everybody in Nashville kind of followed him with that approach. And I followed him too.
That's cool. Gavin Jack is asking about when you get a bound fingerboard refretted, do you get the frets to go over the binding? I mean, in my mind, it just takes a guy that's really good at doing frets, and you got to, it's more work and it costs more money, but you need to nip the tangs on the frets so they don't cut into the binding.
I agree.
Crap. You can wreck a guitar doing that. So find somebody that's really good, right?
Yeah, I agree.
We got 718 people online. That's awesome. Great to have all you guys here.
Great to see all you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Let's see here.
Thank you, Pete, for having me join you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a thrill. It's so fun. Somebody's asking me about the L5 behind me. Well, I'm on I've got an old Lab L5 there.
Yeah.
I went on a Ty Tabor kick, and I interviewed Ty a while ago on my channel, and I love Old King's X, and I thought I got to get a little bit more into this. And both me and John Sir, actually, because John used to use one of those in the 70s to play in cover bands. And so I thought, I got to check this thing out. So I got one, and it was not expensive. I found it on Reverb, and I found Ty's settings online, and sure enough, it sounds great. Like for that certain, it's a very distinct, fast, compressed kind of feel. Harmonics, lots of, and it's a solid state amp, it's crazy. It's like, but anyways, cool. That was really what it was. It's just a Ty Tabor tone search. I have yet to plug it into the 412 cabinet that's mic'd in my other room. I've run it into this 412 I've got back there and just played it here in the room. So I want to experiment more with it. I might go as far as to get an old MIDI verb and all that stuff that you used to use, and just
that'd be great.
Nerdy stuff,
That'd be great.
Juan's up there in he's somewhere in Europe, and he says, Pete, Tim, huge fan of both of you. Thanks, man. He says, my question, I have a Rivera Rock Crusher, familiar with those, as a load box. And when recording silently with IRs, I get random volume fluctuations always at the worst time. Any thoughts? That could be power tubes on your amp. Random volume fluctuations. Does it sound like it swells down and up? Because the only time I've ever had that happen was bad power tubes in an amp. But, not outside the realm of possibility. If you're driving the amp hard and running it hot all the time into a load, it could be time.
Yeah, I think it's the amp's fault, and not, I don't know how to solve it, but I agree with you. I think it's something going on in the amplifier.
Yeah.
And
if it goes down quickly, maybe not. But if it's like the swell, sounds like tubes.
Well, that begs the question, if you try it with another amp, does it do the same thing? Anyway.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
You said it. Glad you're here. Yeah, good. Does it check a different amp and see if it still does it, and then you'll know for sure. What else? Don't forget to call Mom today, says Fue. Exactly. Happy Mother's Day. Any women in the chat? Hi.
Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day. Any moms?
I think it's my wife is a mom, so I think I'm already too late. She's okay though. We already had our morning together. I didn't get hit on the head with a frying pan or anything. So we're good. I'm the worst.
You just reminded me of my favorite episode of. Do you remember that show called 6 Feet Under?
Yeah.
Great show. God, that was a good show. That was on TV.
Great.
You start like The Sopranos and 6 Feet Under were the
Yeah.
first shows I remember getting really when TV was getting good.
Yeah.
And there's, if anybody remembers the show 6 Feet Under, is about a funeral home in Pasadena and about this family that ran the funeral home. And the first minute of every episode would show someone's death, how they died and ended up in the funeral home, and this is like 6 years running. It was like every episode would be somebody. I laugh. It's not funny, but it was it's a dark comedy. Really.
They made it funny. Yeah, they did.
And the one scene I remember is this old guy sitting at a table and his wife's cooking breakfast and he's reading the newspaper and he's reading and he's bitching about something. He's complaining. She turns around and she's frying up eggs or something on the stove. And she turns around and looks at him. You just know they've been together like 60 years. And she just comes up behind him with the frying pan and just on top of his. So I didn't get it with a frying pan. So, yeah.
That's great.
It's so funny. God, it's not funny, but it was so funny the way they did it. It was like he was just bitching. She just snapped. She'd had it. Poor gal. Anyways, to the bottom of the chat here. Have you guys ever played any of the Selmer amps? And what are your thoughts on that? You ever play any of those old Selmers, like with the eye?
I had a really cool Selmer head. I wish I still had it because they look so cool.
Yeah.
I loved it, but there was too much sag in the power transformer, so I let it go at a certain point. You know what I'm saying? The vintage amps, a great Marshall has this beautiful sag to it. If you can understand, what would you call it? Where you hit it and it kind of like, it's like the voltage drops for a second.
Especially on tube rectified amps, where the voltage, it's met its maximum, when you hit it hard and it can't deliver anymore. So it.
And
I don't think I have COVID, but allergies from like Southern California.
Yeah, allergies are strong here. I have a drip, so I'm fighting that all the time.
Yeah.
So there is some great Marshalls I've noticed. They have this great little squawk and sag on the bottom end, but it's just right. The Selmer that I had, which sounded super old, and there was too much of a sag in the power transformer, and I let it go. It's just such a beautiful looking thing. I wish I'd kept it. It's one of those things.
Yeah, they were so cool. They were great.
Yeah.
I don't really have a perspective on sound, but I remember using one at Linda Perry's because she had one, and it wasn't the twin 12 one or whatever. It was a smaller combo, like maybe a 210 or something, and it had 4 knobs. That was it. I just remember like 2 channels, maybe a volume tone, something like that. Man, I got allergies. Sorry, guys. But anyways, it was really cool and it sounded really great for kind of like a slightly broken up kind of thing. Dina is asking, what are your favorite cabinet and speakers for a dynamic, chimey, clean to crunchy sound? Well, Tim was saying that he uses V30s and then just got some G1265s recently.
Exactly.
One of those, right?
I like V30s just because they are a little brighter than the other alternatives, and they seem reliable. If they're burned in, I've always had good luck with V30s. Yeah,
and when Dina says dynamic, chimey, clean to crunchy, I mean, there's for me an Alnico like a Vox style cab with a blue, or even those new Celestion. The Alnico Cream is a great speaker.
Cool.
Like in a 112.
Haven't tried it.
Got a terrific sound. Celestion's really figured out how to do high power speakers, and they don't sound stiff or, like the Alnico Cream is a 100-watt speaker, but it's got a terrific, wonderful, I always think low wattage. Oh, it's got more characters, and it's like they've got it kind of figured out. They got this new G12 Redback or something. It's a 150-watt speaker, so it's great for 112. And Friedman turned me on to them, and they're really cool for like a. But anyway, I digress. The H75 Creamback is another great one for chime.
Okay. Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, I love that speaker for chime. You specifically say chimey. So somebody else is asking about go-to cabinet mics and do I still use a VR1? It's Ricky. What are your go-to cabinets? A 57 and a 121, right?
No, I changed out the 121. I bought a Royer 122V, which is the tube version. It's their flagship tube version of the 121, and it's awesome. Now,
a little more clear, right?
Well, it's not that. It's almost is a little more. I've used this word before. Buttery and sweet. The top end is sweet and buttery. So the 121 is great, but the 122V, it's sweeter on the top end, and it's really expensive.
Yeah, they are, right? Like 1,500.
So
Right?
even more than that. I mean, so you don't need it. I mean, honestly, if you have a 57 and any other mic you can find that gives it a wider, picture, I'd experiment with anything. You just blend the 57 with anything if you can. Anything.
I'm a fan of this relatively inexpensive, which is probably kind of a copy of the 122. So I'm on the cheap, but it's the ST170 from Sterling, which is Guitar Center's brand of mics. Used to be GT, Groove Tubes mics. They bought that, and then but this ST170 is also an active ribbon, and they're $200. It's like really inexpensive.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's got that. It's really. I tried a 122 and I loved it. It was Dan Booles from 65 Amps. He had one and he lent it to me for a bit, and he said, "Try this thing, you're gonna love it." And I tried it, and it was like, whoa! I found it to be more extended to me. It had this.
Yeah.
So I would say sweet top end too.
Yeah.
It had more. I didn't need to EQ it so much.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about, though. You found a solution. The way I describe it. Sorry to interrupt you, Pete Thorn.
Yeah.
But so I describe the 57 as the mid-range fist. It's just like you're putting your sound through something the size of a quarter, and it's really hard to get. It's like we've heard it all our lives, and it works, but it takes your beautiful big sound and it makes it into this kind of small mid-rangey thing. That's great. Works great. You could just use a 57. Like Michael Landau, that's all he uses. That's what he hears.
Yeah.
So you got the mid-range fist from the 57. Any other mic you can find to give you the pillow around it, all the tones on all the bottom and top end. Maybe I should go this way. All the stuff around that mid-range fist, when you blend them, that's why we all do it. That's why we all blend two microphones. Yeah. And it really could be anything. What you're talking about is a great solution. Could be anything.
Yeah, I recently
experimented
with a FET 47, which I'd never used, but a certain engineer at a studio was like, "Oh, these are great on guitar." I was like, "Really? FET 47?" I always thought of it as a kick drum outside mic,
right?
Or certain singers, or Neumann FET 47. But tried it on guitar, and I was like blown away. And so that blending with it's a different thing, but it's cool. The FET 47 is like everything. It's actually like a great mic all on its own. It just like a good condenser on it can be kind of like. So that's another fun one, but I'm using the mainly the 57 and the ST170 ribbon is what I got in the other room right now. I'm going to get one of those Dynamounts too. That's happening.
Yeah.
So move the mic on the cabinet. If nobody's ever seen a Dynamount, it's amazing. You control it from your phone or on the computer. It's an app, and it'll robotically move the mic in front of the cab, and very precision. So
good.
That's going to happen in the next month. Can't wait. So as much as I love impulse responses and stuff, I still love mics on amps too, and cabs. Nova is asking, can you please remark a little about ceramic pickups? Have you ever, do you know much about magnets and pickups? And have you?
I don't even know what that is. So that's I throw that to you.
Basically in guitar pickups, you've either got, Alnico magnets, aluminum, nickel, and cobalt is what Alnico stands for in some formulation or another, Alnico 2, Alnico 3, 4, 5, and the different, they're all slightly different. I don't know what the hell actually the numbers connotate, but I have a sort of a reference in my mind of what the different pickups and the different magnets sound like. And a ceramic magnet to me is like some DiMarzio Super Distortion or Duncan Custom. Both of those are probably the most common pickups of the ceramic magnet. And I generally think of them as louder and flatter sounding, and sometimes a little bit abrasive, but it can be a cool thing for certain tones. I was never really a fan of ceramic magnets, and then I realized that I think it was a big part of the Van Halen 1 sound, and why that album maybe sounds different than any other Van Halen album. Because I think he was using, at least in the Frankie guitar, he was using a Mighty Mite 1200, which was a copy of a DiMarzio Super Distortion. I think I can't, nobody knows, but all the photos from that time show that pickup in his guitars. So, that might be something he wouldn't even remember, what exactly was in it at that whatever point, because it's 40 years ago. But anyway, when I think of that sound of that album, the distortion sound as opposed to Van Halen 2, you know, that's kind of what I think of the Alnico Magnets compared to Ceramic. I'm not saying that was the only thing going on, but when I put a DiMarzio Super Distortion in a Strat style guitar and then played it through a cranked 100-watt Marshall, I was like, now I get it. Okay, I think that's a big component. So it's not for everything. I can't imagine playing clean with the Ceramic Magnet pickup. I think of them primarily, and maybe I'm wrong, there could be great clean pickups out there that have ceramic magnets in them, and I'm just not hip to it. But to me, it's always like a big high output humbucker kind of thing. Any 6L6 tube recommendations, says Rick. Tubes are in a weird place right now. I know they've had a problem in the Chinese factory that makes most of the 12X7s, and like they're actually shut down right now, I think, and
wow,
becoming hard to get. I mean, in kind of a tough place. But 6L6 is luckily, I think there's pretty good options from the Mike Matthews, the Sovtech Electro Harmonics, as well as JJ6L6s, I think are fairly well regarded. There just isn't a hell of a lot of them out there. And I'm more of an EL34 guy overall, but
you know what? I use KT88s in a couple of amps that I love.
On your Brian Ray amp, right? BTR.
Well, in my it's a Rusty Anderson amp. The
Rusty Anderson.
Yeah. What's it called again? RS823. And then I also have them in this Park up here, which is a great sounding amp. It's a Park 45100 KT88s.
Oh, so it's 4 KT88s or 2?
Yeah, 4.
Wow,
yeah, this one, the divided by 13 has 2. The Park has 4. So anyway, I seem to gravitate towards them for some reason.
I guess probably because the way you run an amp, it's a nice, like a big clean, get it to the edge of breakup, and then hit it with a pedal, Yeah. Nice way to use it. I know that's actually like the Billy Corgan thing, is he used to use JCM 800s, KT88s into the low gain input with a big muff. That was his
yeah.
So low gain input for clean, and then like hit it with the fuzz. And
fuzzes do sound the best in front of big, clean tones. Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, definitely. What else we got here? Let's see. Thinking about a Thornbucker for the bridge of my Les Paul type. Anyone have any thoughts? I'll let you guys talk amongst yourselves. I like them. Gary. Somebody's asking about Ian Thornley and whether or not he could be on the show. Are you hip to Ian?
Oh yeah. I mean that he's one of those players that combines taste with more taste.
Yeah, and it's such a great songwriter, right?
Yeah, and a great singer and a great presence on stage. I mean, that guy should be the biggest artist in the world. You turned me on to him actually. Oh, okay. And I saw him. I wasn't that aware of him, and that's as good as it gets for me as far as a guitar player.
Yeah,
that's as good as it gets.
He's unbelievable. I mean, going to one of the shows is just like because singing is great songs. It blows you away with the singing, and then he goes into the solo, and you're like, what the hell can't this guy do?
Yeah, it just makes you feel like, oh well, I'm only I'm one of this.
He's got so many. I mean, he's a one of a kind, really. In that, not too many. I can't think of anybody that can sing like him, write like him, and play like him. So
right.
Very special.
Yeah.
I'd love to have him on and talk to him.
You said, I know people are hard to pin down, although they may not be as hard right now. But I remember you and I trying to get some people scheduled, and it was near impossible sometimes.
It's easier now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is easier now. Well, part of it too is that you don't have to drive, and if you don't have to drive, then there's none of that. Oh, I got to do this thing. It's like, it's pretty great. This is a pretty great thing in some ways. This shift, good.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gonna make us rethink things. I mean, like for instance, I can cook a little. That's new. Yeah. Somebody's asking about how do we crank amps without going deaf. Well, Tim, we talked about is he's got a ISO closet downstairs. So you actually sit. I mean, I know you really think you're hearing. Tim in his setup has 2 sets of monitors, one facing out if in case a client or producer comes. So the desk he's sitting at right now, that would be your view sitting there, and you'd have a pair of speakers aimed at you, but they're bigger than the ones you've got aiming at you. You use a small set of Genelecs, right?
Yeah, they're baby Genelecs about this big so that I don't go deaf, and also so it doesn't pollute the client's wonderful Atom. I've got beautiful big client speakers that are facing the other direction. Yeah. So when I'm sitting here with a client, a producer or artist or engineer or composer, we're facing each other. They have Pro Tools and their monitors, which are massive monitors, and I have Pro Tools and my tiny monitors, which keep me honest.
Exactly. Yeah. Jeff says he's disputing my Eddie Van Halen story. He says, actually, it was an old PAF from a 58 335. I know that that's what he used later, but I think that on Van Halen 1, I think the photographic evidence is, if you just do a little bit of search for Van Halen 1977, Eddie Van Halen 1978 images, look at all the pictures of his guitars that he was playing during those. I'm a super geek, keep in mind. I'm not just talking out of my butt. If you look at all the photos from that era and look at the Mighty Mite pick, it's not a super distortion, it's a Mighty Mite. And not only that, there's also the fact that Seymour Duncan evidently wound Eddie a pickup around that time. And in 79, he was running ads in Guitar Player magazine that had all his pickups listed. And one of them said Duncan Custom, and in parentheses, it said Van Halen. The reason is the Duncan Custom is a 14K ceramic magnet pickup that's a dead nuts copy, basically, of a DiMarzio Super Distortion. So the Duncan Custom was basically, he was billing as his Van Halen pickup. And Eddie actually was super pissed about that and said, stop selling that pickup. What are you doing putting my name by, or, putting my name on the, basically. So all that evidence from 77, 78, 79 leads me to hypothesize, that he was, I think, using a ceramic magnet, 14K Mighty Mite, maybe Duncan Custom that Duncan had wound from. And yes, then PAFs from that point onward. And you can definitely hear that sound on Van Halen 2. I mean, where it's just much more of a raw, lower gain. Anyways, look for the images, though. And the images don't lie. You can look at his guitars and see what's in them. And you'll see the Mighty Mite. What year is my vintage Strats' banter? It's a 64. Are the pickups original? Do I like them? I love them. The neck pickup is actually a what they would call a V63 now. Used to call an ML. And the other two are stock originals. And I remember when I brought that pickup or that guitar to Tim's for the first time. You said, "You can leave this here," I do love that guitar.
Amazing.
Somebody's up there in the top chat for Tim. What level of playing should you be at for the master class? That's a great question. I'm self-taught. Could somebody that is self-taught or maybe more of a beginner, would they still be able to garner a lot of good information from your class?
I'm adding beginner content for the first time, so that's coming. There is some beginner content. But if you can play a little bit, you should take the free trial. The reason we have a free trial is so that you can spend 2 weeks going through everything and then say, no, I don't want this, and not get charged. So just take the free trial. You don't even need to ask the question. And even if you got charged by mistake, we always give refunds. We protect every customer. So if you forget to cancel or whatever and you get charged and you go, oh, I got charged, what's up? You just email us and we give you a refund. The customer's always right. But it's for intermediate guitar players at every level, but there's so much in there that I think I think it would be right for you, but it's up to you to find out.
Yeah, I guess it's just put in a little bit of the time, do the free trial, and then you'll know. Watch some of the stuff. And I still need to do this. I need to go and learn from the master. I must. Let's see. This is a good question. Well, a great question from Evan. Could you help me buying my first delay and OD pedal, overdrive pedal? Who would you recommend as being a good go-to first delay and overdrive?
Okay, so I don't know if these are easy to get anymore, but can you see my Line 6 Echo Park here? I don't want to unplug it.
Great pedal.
There, okay, it's coming. Anyway.
I agree.
The Echo Park is a good one, but they might be a little more expensive now.
Because of you.
Truly, I've talked about them a lot. Okay, let's move to overdrives. I like a micro amp. I really, really do. And there's a company, a guy I know who's cloned the Mostortion pedal, which is really popular in Nashville. It's called a Karma pedal. So, but the micro amp, the MXR micro amp, I have the Bradshaw version of it, which is a little cleaner, boost line overdrive.
Kicking the front end of an amp, right?
Anything. That's my whole thing. I want pedals that basically explode the input of the amp. I don't want pedals that are necessarily distortion pedals. The pedals I love basically just slam the amp more, so you get this kick. And it is more distortion, but it sounds very natural. And a lot of those pedals are not that expensive. So the Karma, which is by my friend Greg Drummond, just look it up. Also, the Boost Line Driver by Custom Audio Electronics, or its more normal counterpart, the MXR Micro Amp. Those are great ones too. And Tom Bukovac is a huge proponent of the Boss equalizer pedal, because that is an overdrive. All you do is you just goose it, and it's a very natural sounding overdrive. Yeah. That's super inexpensive. I mean, that should be the first answer. If you want a very natural gain pedal, the little Boss EQ pedal.
Yeah, and you can pick frequency and boost it up and boost the level slider if you just want a clean boost.
Yeah.
Actually, just kicking the front end with level. You use a Nobles sometime though, right?
I do. I have it sitting there, but I hesitate to recommend it because it's so hard to get the right ones from the early 90s. And I think people are beginning to clone them, but if you can find a Nobles, I mean, there's I really am a champion for people who are trying to get this stuff done right now and make it affordable and make it so everybody can have it. I'm a champion for being able to basically not have to find some rare thing that you can't get. I like being able for anybody to get all the sounds I get. I mean, if you can find, so I rather than recommend the Nobles, which are hard to get, it might be $350 on eBay if you can find the right one. Find the guy who's making the Nobles today. Now, Nobles makes a reissue, but it doesn't quite have the thing. The old one. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Boss is kind of killing it lately. When I think of like what would I recommend? I mean, it's like, yeah, you could get the Waza Blues Driver or the Waza Super Overdrive if you want to overdrive in the pedal, And then if you want to just kick the front end of the amp, take Tim's recommendations, And another pedal I love in a similar, a great one actually, is the Cocoa Boost from Sir, because it's a clean boost, but it's also a mid boost, and the mid boost is sublime in front of a like kicking the front end of a Marshall or something.
Wow.
It's like a treble booster, but it's not as crazy, like as a Range Master or something, which is kind of an aggressive certain. Yeah, it's one step short of a fuzz sort of thing almost. But the Cocoa with the mid, it'll just make your amp scream and go into feedback, and it's just this wonderful thing. But it's only in that targeted frequency, so it doesn't blow it up and get all, So nobody's tried a Cocoa Boost. Give it a shot.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention the carbon copy, and so that's a good alternative. So it's something that sounds really good. It's made to sound a little dark. It has a little bit of the tape, quality on it. Yeah. That's a perfect solution. Also, the EP booster, I saw that mentioned. The guys at Exotic make the Super Sweet and the Super Clean.
Good pedal.
Those are great pedals too.
Yeah.
The AC booster, I did a video for the original AC booster, and I'm going to do another one next month or something. The first video I ever made. That's a great one too. So these are this is the family of pedals that are natural sounding.
The Super Clean I have right here.
Oh yeah.
Neat thing about this pedal is, yes, it's a clean boost with one knob and all that, but if you look at the side, it's got these little dip switches on it that you can see right there, and you can see I've got the two middle ones boosted up and then the outside ones down. That boost just mids more. And once again, there's something about when you set it like that, and then you set it at about, like I've got it at 9 o'clock right now, and just putting this in front of your amp with those mids boosted only, it's like the magic better button for your guitar sound. This thing is really great sounding. I love it.
I have it in front of my amp right now, and I use it all the time. Have it.
Yeah.
Right over here.
Good. Really, really nice. The Super Sweet's great too. It's just more gain. And I find this actually gives me as much as I would want. So,
That's what I'm talking about. These are people who are trying to get this done today, right now, so that everybody can have it, I'm really a proponent for that.
Yeah. Without some, it doesn't have to be the vintage thing always, does it? Tim, did you happen to play on Dweezil's first record on a cut of Staying Alive with Nuno and Luke, says Steve Rayburn?
I did a big piece of music with Dweezil way back in the day that had those guys and Eric Johnson and Steve Vai. I think he just did this massive, giant piece of music with like 40 guitar players on it. I do remember that. I may have played on Staying Alive. I spent a lot of time with Dweezil in the early 90s, and we had some fun together. Still a good friend. I brought him to your birthday party.
You did bring him to my birthday party. That's right. He's a great guy. He's really nice. That was fun, actually. We were talking about our unique experiences doing Japanese touring gigs because he'd done one. I remember that.
Yeah,
that was fun.
God, it was fun. That was just when was that? It was just last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it feels to me in this moment like a long time ago, but it's not. It was, you know how sometimes like, wow, the year flew by. It feels in this moment like 2 years ago, but it was actually not even a year ago. So wow. God, I guess we won't be doing that again this year yet, right?
Not for a while. Yeah.
Too bad. It'll be one of those. I saw somebody. I think it was maybe like Julian Coriel or something, but on Great Guitar Player. I think it was him. But it was on Facebook recently. We had a birthday, and it was like had a happy birthday sign in their house above their head and a cupcake with a one candle, and they're just holding it, looking depressed. Happy birthday all by themselves. It's like at least he had a sense of humor about it. It's tough times. Kerry Miller says he's asking me, you use two Eventide H9s. Is one in front of the amp and the other one in the effects loop? Or are they both in the loop? I actually use two in the loop. One's mainly for reverb and one's for pitch kind of stuff. But you could it would be cool to have one in front and one in the loop. I just have a Mobius in front, and that's my in front mod kind of box thing. And then the two H9s are for just the way I've got it configured. But it would be neat to run one in front and one in the loop.
I do. I run them in front. They're awesome in front. The tone going through the guitar is so hi-fi and healthy. Awesome.
Yeah. It's a great jack of all trades pedal for sure.
Yeah.
It's a little tweaky to the editing, but I still love them. I mean, they've been on my board for 10 years. Just the app is great once you get into it, but it'll take you about 60 seconds to get to the place where you're Bluetoothing and all that. And then where do you want to update? No, I don't want to update. I just want to get some feedback on my friggin' delay sound. Oh God. Anyways, okay. Well, and I don't want to keep you too long either because we're about 2 hours and 15 minutes right now.
Yeah, it would be good. It would be a good stopping place soon for me. I think I could get up out of this chair and go.
I hear you.
Do something.
Okay, loud and clear. Let's take one more question and then we'll wrap it up. And let's see here. I want a good one. I want to find a good one. Somebody's up there in the super chat. So he says it's from Patrick Carroll. Want to ask the master while he's here, could you talk about recording Rent?
That was the movie Rent.
Oh,
well, I'm glad you adore that film. It was really fun to do. The director is a guy named Chris Columbus, and he worked with us a lot. A phenomenal guy. The problem with Rent is there are only 2 rock songs, and I don't want to criticize it because you love it, but we put a band together. We listened to the original cast record, and I think we beat it. And it was just a great band. Dorian Crozier, Paul Bushnell, might have been Chris Chaney, another guitar player named Greg Saran, who's now the guitar player on American Idol, who's phenomenal. Oh, you know Greg.
I know all those guys actually.
Yeah. Dorian, and then Jamie Mahobarak played keyboards.
Great. Yeah.
My only issue with it is a lot of great songs, but we did the first 2 rock songs first, and then the rest of it was all this delicate stuff, which is beautiful music. But I wanted to rock out more. We spent a lot of time on it. I'm really proud of it. It was in a day, and the budgets for movies are so huge. They flew us to New York City for one day so we could see the actual play and kind of get our motivation as musicians. It was crazy. The producer, Rob Cavalli, he would do stuff like that. It was like, yeah, you got to fly the band to New York to see the show. We can't do this without them seeing the show. So we took JetBlue and we flew to Manhattan, stayed the night, saw it, stayed the night, and then flew home the next day.
That's kind of cool.
It was cool. Yeah. And then it was great. We camped out for a long time, but really it was fun working with Chris Columbus, the director. We even did some cues for the film, some soundtrack stuff. So I was really proud of it. I mean, some great actors.
Yeah. That's a good story. That's and it's cool to know that all those guys were there with you. The Wook, I remember working with him.
Yeah,
he's a kid. He's amazing.
He's amazing. He's in Nashville now, still playing great. And yeah, Rosario Dawson. It's like it was so fun because you get to interact with the actors. They would show up, and
oh, cool.
It was really, really, really fun. It's when you do a big movie like that, you feel important because you're around important people who are, spending a lot of money. And they make you feel important, they really do. It's like, okay, this has got to be the greatest thing ever made because we're doing it. And, it's really fun. Really, really. It turned out great.
I know what you mean. Like when all that money's being spent, you're like, geez, I better not suck right now because look at all this money that's being spent right now. Yeah. This will all be for naught if I drop my guitar during the solo or whatever. Yeah.
I just out of the 40 songs we did, I would just wish more than 2 of them were rockers. Only 2 of them were kind of rockers, So
yeah.
That's my only complaint.
Well, Eric, he was up there in the super chat and he says, thanks guys. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day. And I can't thank you enough for coming on, Tim. It's fun.
Thank you. It was so fun.
Yeah, we got to do it again, and I'm going to talk to Matt Ferguson now. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah, let's explore it. He said, yeah, let's try it one time. So let's do that. See what happens. It'll be our pilot. We'll try a pilot episode.
We should totally do that. Yeah, he could be the guest. Talking about all the great happenings at Line 6.
Right, you're right.
What's happening in the future? Okay, I love that idea.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
much,
everybody.
Man. I'm gonna hit the. I never know where it is. Oh, there it is. The big red button that says "End Broadcast." I guess that's the one I hit.
Man, it's so much fun. Thanks, everybody, for all the great questions and all the good cheer. We're gonna get through this.
Yeah, everybody, play your guitar. Make you forget about all the crap in the world. Yeah.
All right. Take care.